Welcome to another edition of the RF Video Shoot Interview Series. We're here with a legendary manager in the sport of professional wrestling, Sir Oliver Humperdink. Glad to have you.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here.
And how did you get started in the professional wrestling business?
Well, it was kind of a back way in. When I was still a kid in high school in Minneapolis, I worked for an ushering company that had a contract for the Metropolitan Stadium where the Vikings and Twins played, and also had the contract for the Minneapolis Auditorium. So this is, like I said, back when I was still in high school. And Verne Gagne would promote at the auditorium. So I got to work the matches, you know, and got to know the boys. They put me on the dressing room door, letting, you know, the boys in, keeping the people out.
So you were security for the
Security
wrestling
for yeah. Traveled around, set up the ring, carried jackets, did everything you could do, you know.
So this is when you were in high school then?
Yeah, I was probably about, I guess around 15, 16 then, yeah.
And were you traveling at that time, the territory, the circuit up there?
Not initially, but then later on, through the ushering gig, I got to know the guys and got to know the guys that carried the ring around. Marty Miller was a referee there. He carried the ring. George Gadaski was another one that carried the ring there. And I started going on the road with them, setting up the ring and things.
How, who took to you first? Like, who was one of the guys, like, of the wrestlers that, or were you a fan, like,
well, I was a big fan.
Big fan,
prior,
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Prior to that, I was a big wrestling nut.
Okay.
And, of course, getting, you know, working at the auditorium as an usher, I was, you
right.
know,
So you probably
they wouldn't have had to pay me. That's how good.
Right.
That's
you would have probably been buying a ticket anyways.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What first wrestlers did you see, or what matches were going on at the time where you were like, wow, this is, I want to be more than a security guard. I want to really get involved with this.
Well, back watching on TV, I mean, you know, it was Mills and Kowalski, great tag team up there, Murder Incorporated. Guys like Butch Levy, Verne Gagne, Leo Namalini, people like that. And then when I started actually working at the auditorium, guys like Billy Red Lyons, Red Bastien, the Vachon brothers, Maurice and Paul. Geez, there was so much talent, great talent that went through that area that I just got to know them on a one-to-one basis, you know, and they started to trust me and they opened up a little bit to me, and the rest is history.
Okay, we are back here. Just some of the stars you were talking about that you saw when you were working as a security. Who was like the first wrestler that you like befriended? Besides Marty Miller, who was like a referee and all that.
Oh, I guess Red Lions and Red Bastien, I guess, were the first.
Right. How did you take it from that step of security? What did you do to pursue it further on? Like
well, I started traveling with the ring, so
okay.
I'd be going to the spot shows and that.
Right.
And seeing the guys every night and all that. And, you know, this is back when Crusher was a very big draw there in Minneapolis too, you know.
Right. How was Bruiser and Crusher? Were they
the best? I mean,
right.
I just wish everybody could have seen them in their heyday, because they were just the quintessential tag team. I mean, they were great, you know.
I mean, they were so believable.
Oh yeah, I mean the characters were bigger than life. And,
were some of the guys like closed off to you, or were they open to you? Like,
well, once, you know, a new guy would come in, they kind of look, you know, like, who is this guy and what is, you know, back then it was really tight. I mean, nobody smartened anybody up.
Right.
You know, but the more they were in the territory, they got to trust me and got to know me.
How long before you got smartened up with everything? Did it take a while, or?
Well, it was funny, but I was really smart. I mean, and also Heenan was there at the time.
Right. Okay.
So I would sit behind Bobby and kind of watch his back, because back then there wasn't barriers and all that.
Ah, okay.
So he'd pull a leg or something, and they'd come for him.
You would have so much heat on him too.
Yeah, so exactly. When that happened, I'd turn around and face the crowd, kind of keep the people off him.
Right.
And let him do his thing, you know.
So you were saving him nicely.
Yeah, and you know, I know the finish, so I knew when the heat was going to come and all that. So, and Verne never knew I was smart. I mean, Verne, you know, he kayfabed everybody.
Right.
Then, you know?
We heard some stories on a lot of our tapes and everything. Verne was kind of, maybe not as up to the times. Did you find, was he like that then, even then, or?
Well, that was a very different time. I mean, you know, you could certainly say that later on.
Okay.
But during that era, I mean, he was a typical promoter, you know. They were all kind of like that back then.
Right.
But, you know, take that up to like '85 when Vince started his national move. he was most definitely behind times.
Was now Vern? Did he have a lot of respect? Did the boys respect Vern?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
he was the boss,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
he had the biggest respect.
The boys respected Vern. Vern treated the guys very well.
Mhm.
It was a good territory. You made money there. Minneapolis was a hard territory because you didn't really work a lot in the wintertime.
The weather.
Because the elements were so horrible.
Right.
You know? So it was mainly a spring to fall territory. And that's when you make all your money.
Uh-huh.
You know, well, actually, I've had that backwards. Actually, it was more of a winter territory because people were cooped up in their houses and weren't able to get out.
Right.
So then they were kind of willing and able and ready to go
Let's go to the
on
matches.
a Saturday night or whatever, you know.
Okay.
Then during the summertime, when people were very active outdoors, you know, cabins and things like that, well, then the territory was scaled back.
Mhm.
He'd run his major towns, but not the spot shows.
Right. How after outside Minneapolis, how did you hook up with going with the ring to the other towns? What towns did you start going to?
Well, I'd go all over, you know, all over Minnesota, Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Chicago had their own ring, so I didn't get down there very often, although I did go to Chicago back in
Right.
those days too. But mainly just the towns in Minnesota, Wisconsin,
Uh-huh.
Iowa,
Uh-huh.
North and South Dakota,
Uh-huh.
when Vern would run it. Vern would run Fargo all the time,
That was a good draw.
so that was a good town for us.
Did they do Winnipeg or?
They did Winnipeg, but Winnipeg, I believe, had their own ring too,
Okay.
so we didn't take the ring up there.
Besides Minneapolis, I guess was it St. Paul they would run at the Civic
Yeah.
Center. But what,
Yeah.
what other towns were like the hotbeds then?
Well, you had Milwaukee. You had
That was
Chicago.
Bruiser and Crusher's hometown, correct?
Well, that was Crusher's hometown.
Crusher's hometown. Okay.
Dick was from Indianapolis.
Okay, that's right.
But Crusher lived there a good part of his life, you know.
Hmm.
And besides Milwaukee, there was like Madison, Wisconsin, Chicago, Illinois, Rockford, Illinois, the Quad Cities, Davenport,
Moline or Moline.
Moline and Davenport, yeah. Some other Iowa towns down there, mostly spot shows, because Iowa's also Geigel's territory out of Kansas City.
Right.
So Vern would run like the northern part.
So he didn't cross over.
Exactly.
Did the spot show was it good business? Then?
Oh yeah, it was crazy business.
Because you look at like spot show business today, it's like
It was crazy business, and the wrestling business has always gone to the people.
right.
You know, where Major League Baseball or football, you had to go to them. You know, but wrestling
Came to
came to their hometown, the high school gyms and things like that, and it was insanely popular.
right. Was the TV strong then?
Yeah, very strong, very strong. You had a great TV show, a great TV network.
When you first started with the working, like when you first started going in, who was the champion at the time?
Vern, I believe.
Vern was
Yeah,
the champion. Did you think he was a good champion?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I thought he was very credible.
Right.
Very credible. Had all the people in Minnesota knew that he went to the University of Minnesota, played football, wrestled for him, you know.
So he's the hometown.
So he
guy.
was a hero long before, you know, professional wrestling or anything.
Okay. What other like after you started getting the ring and everything? What was your first actual step?
Well, actually,
in front of the crowd.
the first time ever was during a snowstorm in Fargo, North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned Fargo earlier. And some of the guys couldn't make it, so they had to rearrange a card. And I was with Mike Boyette, the hippie. Most people would remember him as. And Mike was driving the ring at that time, and we had gone up there. And some of the guys didn't make it. Well, Boyette, who would usually haul the ring and referee, had to wrestle that night.
Mm-hmm.
I refereed.
Okay.
So that was how I really started that way.
Were you nervous, or you pretty much knew the game?
Yeah, my knees were knocking pretty good the first time.
Right.
But it was a smaller market and all that, you know, so it wasn't that big of a deal.
So after that, how did did that start? Did you start refereeing more afterwards, or
No, Vern still thought it was kayfabe, you know. Vern
really?
still didn't know it. I was smart, you know.
Oh, okay.
I started, actually started managing in
Uh-huh.
1973.
Okay.
And that was through Buddy Roberts and Jerry Brown, the Hollywood Blondes,
Mhm.
original Hollywood Blondes. And Buddy I had known previously from a stint he did in Minneapolis.
Okay.
And, you know, all this time, back then, the boys would tell me, Bruiser would tell me, other guys would tell me, boy, you'd make a great manager one day. And I'd all say, yeah, you know, I'm not going to hold my breath until that happens. 'cause
Right.
Back then, you just didn't, you know,
Just
everybody, if you bought a pair of boots and that, didn't make you a wrestler.
Right.
So it was very hard to break in back then.
So where did you was it AWA that you first managed, or
No,
it was
we went to Montreal.
Oh, okay.
Grand Prix.
Okay.
Back in 1973, that was for Mad Dog and Butcher Vachon.
Okay.
Edouard Carpentier was part of the office. A guy by the name of Lucien Gregoire, Yvon Robert Jr., and those guys did phenomenal business up there.
Did you your first match? Did you manage Rene Goulet and
Yeah.
Lars Anderson?
Yeah.
Is that-
Well, actually, I managed Lars before he was Lars. He was
Okay.
still Larry Heinemi.
Okay.
And it was, again, I believe in Fargo, somewhere up in North Dakota. But somebody didn't make it.
Right.
So then, I went out with Lars, just on a lark. Just said, come on to the ring with me or whatever. And we worked with Rene Goulet. And that was the first time I managed him.
Right. Going back to the AWA, going back, any like good Bruiser Crusher stories? Like,
Oh, it was just always, those guys were just always, individually they were characters, but you put those two together and it was magic,
right.
They played off of each other beautifully. And, I don't think there's a single story that I can recall right now, but it was always good times. When they were,
Right. They were like what you, the stories would portray them as
everything you heard about them is true.
right.
Yeah.
Like how insane were some of the crowd? Like Indianapolis, I heard like some of the
I never got to Indianapolis.
Never got down there?
No.
but in like Milwaukee, I heard there was some.
Milwaukee was a very tough town back then. Yeah, a lot of riots and stuff like that. But Crusher owned the town, boy.
Was that a common occurrence a lot of times with the
Oh
fans?
yeah, back then. Oh yeah.
Really getting in the ring.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, they really believed it.
what was like the most insane thing you saw, like with the crowd, or either with you back then in the AWA days?
Well, let me just tell you a story that happened to me in California, probably in 1975 or so. I was out there working LA territory, and Greg Valentine was managing him at the time. Wrestled in San Diego one night, at the San Diego Sports Arena. It was a little building downtown on D Street or something like that. It was like a bull ring. I mean, very steep sides,
Right.
very small floor area.
Right.
So it was just, people
Everybody was
were right
on
there
top
on top of you, We had a cage match one night with Freddie Blassie, of all people.
Okay.
Blassie was a legend out there.
Yeah.
in LA, Especially in the cage. You called the cage Freddie Blassie Cage for years out there. So something happened one night out there. I can't remember what the finish was, but we somehow got the best of Blassie in the cage.
Right.
And people started, I got in the ring. I guess we were beating the hell out of Blassie or whatever. But they actually started tearing down the cage.
Oh, jeez.
So then, you think, well,
How am I gonna get out of here?
You know you're going to get hurt. You just don't know how bad.
Right.
Then the lights go out in the building.
How'd that happen? It just happened?
Well, somebody was back there.
Oh, really?
So, it was a pretty hairy night that night.
What happened? Would you just fought your way back?
Fought our way out, yeah.
Wow.
Like I said, it was a real steep building going up, and the dressing room was a cross aisle that went around the building. Then there was some balcony seats. But where the aisle was street level. And there was a little hallway that our dressing rooms were down, with a door going out to the alley on the end of end of the hallway. Well, the crowd was just, coming right behind us, and we were finally fighting back. And they almost pushed us. We just had to grab the dressing room door as we were going by. Or else what they were trying to do was rush us out to the alley.
All right.
Who knows what would happen. We'd probably still be laying there.
Going back to AWA, I heard there was a story, I think, with something on a plane ride with Butcher Vachon or something.
I was Mad Dog.
What happened with that? I heard he tried to open up the door or
Yeah,
something.
I sure did.
Were you on that flight?
I was not on the flight, but I believe it was Adonis that got him going that night.
Really?
And yeah, it really happened. Yeah.
What happened? He just
he opened up the door. He wanted air or something. He probably wouldn't put enough air in the plane or whatever.
Wow.
And they got him to open up the door. He opened it up.
Imagine if he did that today.
He was a guy. Maurice Vachon was a guy that knew no fear. I think probably the toughest guy I ever met in the business to this day.
He is.
He is.
Even more than
Wasn't a real
Crusher.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Really?
Wasn't a real big guy by today's standards. Probably Maurice was probably 5'10" or something like that. But double tough, man. Nobody I've ever seen to this day is tougher than him.
Did you find that AWA territory when you were, started doing it? Did you find that maybe was the place that had like the most legit, like tough guys in the business?
Yeah, I think they did have a reputation. Vern liked to bring those guys in.
Right.
The guys with the shooter background.
Kind of like how Watts had the big guys in the 80s.
Right.
Vern had that in the 70s.
Well, Bill was up there I met Bill Watts the first time working for Vern.
Okay.
When Bill was up there, that was like 1968 or so.
Mm-hmm.
But he learned a lot from Vern that way.
Right.
And Bill Watts was an amateur wrestler too, so
Mm-hmm.
those amateur guys like to stick together. You know?
Yeah. What there's a lot of write-up. What other guys would they bring in? I heard they bring in like the Sheik a lot of times.
Not to Minneapolis. No.
But to like the other towns. Like,
No. The Sheik would once in a while go into Chicago.
or Indianapolis, I think Heenan.
In Indianapolis, yeah. Bruiser and Sheik had a big feud there, and in Detroit.
Okay.
But not in Minneapolis. Vern wouldn't use Sheik.
How come? There's Sheik
Because
there?
it was too gimmicky.
Ah, really? Vern didn't like that? Okay.
Vern had pretty straight territory, a lot of wrestling.
Right.
Not a lot of gimmickry.
Right.
Probably the most gimmick guy was Crusher,
Really? Okay. What how come you said you started in Montreal?
Mhm.
I guess what, 73 you said?
73.
How come you didn't start out in AWA?
Vern's, back then it was very different. If Vern didn't train you, he didn't use you, if you
Mhm.
were just coming into the business. Back then, my buddies back then setting up the ring with me were guys like Paul Pershman, who turned out to be Buddy Rose.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Doug Summers
Mhm.
went on and had a great career. And those guys, Vern trained and he used, but he didn't train me.
So he didn't
And-
use you.
And plus, Bobby Heenan was there doing a terrific job for him. So
Right. So
It
he
was
was
really-
he only used one manager.
Yeah, there was really no need to have anybody else with Bobby.
Is that how the territories kind of played back there? If they had
Pretty
the
much.
one manager,
Pretty much.
That's it.
This was a giant territory where they'd have, like in Louisiana, they'd have the northern end, Oklahoma and that. And then they'd have the southern end with Louisiana, Mississippi. So then you could get by with two managers using them on different ends.
Okay.
But back then, yeah, it was one manager, that was it.
When you were doing the security, did you go, "Hey, this is what I want to do. I want to manage"? Or
Well,
did you
I
want to
knew-
be a wrestler?
I knew that before I walked into the security.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a dream, of course. I never thought I'd attain it.
Right.
But it was always in the back of my mind. Just to be around it, though. I was just happy to be around it.
What were some of the other like top things you saw in AWA before you went to Montreal?
There's so many. I remember a good friend of mine, Hercules Cortez, who was killed up there
Mm-hmm.
in a car wreck. Geez, so many good times, Such a simpler time for me,
Were they running Comiskey Park at that time too?
They had run Comiskey Park, yeah.
Mm.
I think the first show at Comiskey was at 61 with
Pat O'Connor.
Pat O'Connor and Buddy Rogers.
Right.
And then Vern did have a couple shows in the 70s there too.
Right. So business was that good where they were able
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah.
do.
Oh, it was solid business. I mean, Vern did nothing but business back then.
How far did Vern's territory at that time in the 70s go out west? They weren't doing
Denver.
Oh, they were doing
Yeah.
Denver,
Yep.
right? And then
Yep.
they didn't do. Were they doing Vegas at that time or?
No, this is when I was first starting.
Uh huh.
Vern would go as far west as Denver, but not San Francisco, not
Okay.
Las Vegas.
And then I think what Funks are still doing like Colorado Springs and all that, right?
Right,
Okay.
Colorado Springs. I worked down there. I was on the Funk's last crew down there before they sold out to Murdoch in
Oh, what year was that?
1979-ish.
79.
Yeah.
How was that like?
78, I don't know, maybe 78, 79, somewhere along there.
So you were on the last tour there.
Right before they sold out to Murdoch and Mulligan, yeah.
Who was it? Was Terry Dory, Ricky
Terry.
Romero?
Terry wasn't around much. I think
He's in
Terry
Japan?
had the strap then.
Okay, so he was
So
traveling.
he was traveling.
Right.
And Junior was around a little bit. We
Okay.
went around the territory with Junior.
I heard a lot of.
Ricky Romero was very
I heard
big
he was
down there.
pretty over like Albuquerque and
Ricky?
Yeah,
Oh, phenomenal.
he was like the most over guy.
Great guy, great worker, recently died. He was a great man.
Yeah, he just died like a couple months ago, right?
Yeah.
I read a thing like a lot of our interviews. A lot of guys say that the Mid South loop was a nightmare to drive.
Tough.
I heard Amarillo was worse.
Well, Amarillo had some long trips
Like
too.
Colorado
but
Springs and Albuquerque.
it wasn't as bad as Mid-South.
Nah.
No way.
Because of the highways. I think they said the roads down
Yeah,
in
there's
Louisiana
no-
were terrible.
Yeah,
Right?
they didn't have any. I think the only freeway they had when I was there in Louisiana was 10. That went across the bottom of the state.
Baton Rouge to
There's
New Orleans.
nothing 20 wasn't there.
Yeah.
There's nothing going north-south. It was all back roads.
Yeah.
And you'd be in Oklahoma City or Tulsa one night and roll to Louisiana the next night. It was just gigantic territory.
Right. Okay, going back to how did you end up in Montreal? You weren't really a personality yet but you end up in Montreal making like your debut in there. How did,
Well,
how did that happen?
Buddy and Jerry, Buddy Roberts and Jerry Brown, the Hollywood Blondes, had been up there the previous year. And Montreal was summer territory because all the buildings up there were hockey buildings. So
Okay.
in the wintertime,
Couldn't run.
couldn't run. And plus it was real dangerous to travel and all that. So they were up there the season before, wanted to go back in '73 with something a little bit different. So they called me, and the three of us went back there in '73.
How was that like, your first full-time? Amazing, right?
First night I was ever in the business. Kind of a funny story.
Okay.
It was the finals of the Grand Prix Tag Team Title Tournament.
Okay.
Of course, they told the fans that, you know, and the two finalists were the Vachon brothers and the Hollywood Blondes. Supposedly the tournament had been going on all this time, but it was our first night back in '73
Right.
in Quebec City at the Coliseum there. And the finish was that out of a four-way, Roberts and one of the Vachons, Butcher, were on the outside, referees with them. Maurice has got the other blonde in a stretch, and I used to carry a cane back then. And I was to roll into the ring, bust Maurice with the cane,
Right.
cover him, 1, 2, 3, we win the belts.
Right.
Well, here, you know, first night in the business, I got to hit a guy I knew could rip me
The guy you think's the toughest guy in the business.
9 ways from Sunday. You know? And he told me before, I said, Maurice, I mean, God, I said, I've never hit anybody with a cane before. He says, and if you ever heard Maurice talk, you know, he had a real grave voice. He says, if you don't hit me with that fucking cane, he says, I'll take it away from you and beat you to death with it. Whoa! Yes, sir, I will definitely hit you with that cane. Whack, I hit him. First night ever in the business, I got suspended.
Really?
For rolling in and hitting him. So I could never stay at the ring in Quebec City after that. I had to just go out, get introduced, and go back.
But every other town you could stay in.
Yeah, it was just the city of Quebec had their own commission.
So really, was that strict with the commission?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
They took it serious back then.
So that was the summer territory. Would you work every night?
Oh yeah, yeah, every night, a couple times on Sundays.
Same matches or different guys?
Pretty much. Back then, Andre the Giant had just come to North America.
Uh-huh.
So it was usually Andre and Carpentier.
Uh-huh.
I'd work Carpentier as a tag team. Or we'd work with Billy Two Rivers and Johnny War Eagle, an Indian team up there. So it was either one of those two every night.
How was Andre? I heard Andre was a lot
Phenomenal.
nicer person back then than he was towards the end.
And what an athlete he was. He was a lot slimmer, and he was still huge, you know, but he probably only weighed about 350 or something like that back then.
And he probably was...
But here's how insane it was.
Okay.
Carpentier would do, the Giant would do the cell job and hot tag Carpentier.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how crazy it was.
Wow.
And he'd be flopping all over the mat for us. You know,
Wow.
the Giant would.
So, how did you adapt to the, you know, French culture? Kind of was...
First thing I learned was all the swear words.
Right.
I learned how to order food, and that's
right. So
I loved it there. I thought it was great.
So it wasn't like a culture shock to you, kind of?
No. Montreal's a very, very progressive city. They call it the New York of Canada. I had a great time there. And, you know, you could pick up things, enough to order food and call some guy a dick or, you know.
Yeah, so.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
So you adapted well.
Oh, very well, yeah.
So that was your first summer. And where did you end up there after that?
After that, we went, when they closed, I think they closed the territory around November. Then we came back to the States, and they brought us back in there for like around Christmas time or New Year's for about a week because they had big shows running in major cities.
Right. So you were still hot off that summer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How was Buddy Roberts? I heard a lot of stories. He's pretty.
Buddy was probably one of the most talented guys in the business that never gets the credit for it.
Right.
Buddy was a hell of a worker.
I heard
he could do anything.
I heard he used to come around. He used to travel with like a garbage bag and one pair of clothes for like a week.
Well, maybe towards
the end,
the other part of his career.
Okay.
When he was with me, he wasn't.
Right.
But he was an interesting fellow.
Right.
You know, I had a great time with those guys. But going back to Montreal for just a second, the business up there, you always hear, man, they were hanging from the rafters. That's how they were actually hanging from the rafters. I'd seen it.
What's that?
You know, all these little ice arenas and that, We'd go out and do a spot show or something, and the people would be wrapped around the building 2 or 3 times.
It's a
Just
hot ticket.
unbelievable, unbelievable. And that was when Rougeau was still promoting there too.
Right. So there was a.
You still had 2 major
There was an
promoters, yeah.
Was the Sheik was in with Rougeau at that time?
Yep. Yep. Abdullah, Sheik.
Now the company you were with the company you were with, did they work with AWA at the time?
Yes.
And
They had
then
a close
Rougeau had the NWA champion.
Right. Right.
Was there any time when Vern had? Did he ever use the NWA champion ever? Vern?
No.
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 There was always. How come Vern never in the NWA champion and Vern? Why? How come they
Well, the
never
story,
were?
I don't know the story because this happened, you know, long before I was involved in the business. But I heard there was a problem with Fez and Gagne,
Uh-huh.
where Fez didn't want to drop the belt to Gagne because he was a smaller guy. You know?
Right.
Doesn't mean he's not tough. He's just a smaller guy.
Right.
And through that, and well, I've heard different things over the years. There was pressure on the NWA back then as a monopoly. And,
Yeah, okay.
And things like that. And the AWA was formed to get the heat off of the NWA and get the belt on Vern. So
Right. So did you, since you were, I guess, an AWA guy, kind of, did you have trouble getting booked into NWA territories? There wasn't like that. Okay.
no, back then the talent could, you know, pretty much
Go anywhere. Okay. So I guess '74. Where did you go back to Montreal that next summer?
No,
Or
we went to Florida. It was the first year in Florida.
first year in Florida.
Eddie Graham.
Did Vern know about you in Montreal? Maybe.
Yeah. You know, I'm not sure if Vern came up there and worked or not. I knew Vern did shows up there for him.
Were you in Montreal? Was it your initial goal to get into AWA? Did you go, hey, I want
No, I just wanted to be a part of the business. I didn't
Okay.
care. I didn't care where it was. You know?
to... Okay.
I had no loyalty that way.
Okay. How did okay, you go to Florida? How was Florida?
Florida's great, man. Florida's red hot. Worked a lot with Kevin Sullivan and Mike Graham down there.
Sullivan was just coming up.
Sullivan was just coming up. Yeah, he had started, I think, for Vince up in the Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think he went to Knoxville and then came to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And,
So this is 74, 75 maybe?
74-ish,
74.
yeah. And Dusty Rhodes was there as a heel. I was there when Dusty turned babyface for the first
Okay.
time. Of course, that, you know.
Is that when Pac Song was down there?
Yep, yep. Gary Hart and Pac Song were down there.
I heard that was like the feud of all feuds.
Well, the business was incredible. I mean, every place we went sold out.
They ran the whole state, right?
Yep. And these were weekly towns, you know. Nowadays, you can't sell a town running once a month. You know, we're running them every week. And stuff.
Right. So they were doing
Phenomenal.
the traditional loop that they were doing in the 80s?
Yeah, well, Florida back then was Monday night was either Orlando or West Palm Beach. Tuesday night was Tampa or Fort Myers. Wednesday night was Miami. During the day we did our TV. Wednesday night was Miami. Thursday was Jacksonville. Friday was Tallahassee or Fort Lauderdale.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday was a spot show, usually around Tampa, Sarasota, or Lakeland. And then Sundays were off back then.
So you were home pretty much the whole week, except maybe a night or
Unless
two.
you wanted to be out partying around, yeah, you were home every
Right.
day.
How was that? Who did you manage down there?
The Hollywood Bonds.
Oh, you managed- So you were almost like as a ticket
Yeah,
going.
yeah, we were a package kind of deal.
Did how did you adapt down there? Was it good? Was the style different? Obviously,
No.
no, it was pretty
No.
much the same as Montreal.
The
or-
Bonds were a pretty good wrestling tag team. I mean, they did their gimmick and all that, but once the bell rang, it was, you know, pretty much down to business in wrestling.
Right.
And if you knew how to wrestle back then, you could go anywhere and make money.
How was Eddie Graham? I heard
Eddie
he's
Graham was a genius.
best finish man in the business.
The best. The best. I've been around them all. He
Mm-hmm.
was the best. Still is the best.
Is he kind of guy you could just want to sit there and just watch and just grasp his knowledge, and
yeah,
soak it all in?
I soaked it up like a sponge when I was around.
Right.
He was incredibly, man, he lay out finishes in such detail, you know. And
Right.
you'd wonder to yourself, why does he want me to do that?
Uh-huh.
And then the next week when you came back,
Uh-huh.
the finish would entail what he had you plant the week before.
Right.
Then it all made perfect sense.
Wow.
You know? Wow. Yeah, exactly. He was that kind of man. Had that kind of mind, you know.
And he could do match 1 through the main event.
Yeah, he laid it. You know, he probably had the most complicated and most long finishes that I've ever, you know, of anybody I've ever been around. But they all made such perfect sense.
How long could your programs go? Like a whole
Oh,
6 months?
6, 8 weeks.
Really?
Well, you know,
But that's every day, though.
There was other guys that ran programs, you know, like Dusty and Pac Song and those guys. They ran it for as long as as much money as they could get out of it. But back then, if you were in a 6-8 week program with somebody, you know, you do your thing for 6 or 8 weeks, and then there'd be somebody else coming, getting ready to go. You know, they'd always have some on the back boiler. So when you kind of move through that, that was already starting to boil. Just move that up front and go around again.
So you're there when Dusty turned babyface.
Yeah.
Who
Pac
was
Song.
that's with that? Who was he tagging with when he was?
It was
heel?
Eddie Graham and Dusty. No, it was Eddie Graham. Well, it might have been Eddie and Mike even,
Right.
against Pac Song and Dusty.
Huh. They turned on Dusty.
Well, no. See,
No.
Dusty had. I believe Dusty had hooked Eddie or something. Pac Song came for the big chop. Eddie ducked out of the way. Boom! He got the dream.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how it all got started.
Right. I don't think I've ever seen
Just
a video on
incredible.
that.
Oh, it's out there. I know
Yeah.
it's out
Yeah.
there. But it's something to see, and they just. I mean, they went from there. You know.
Right.
It was incredible.
Who else was down there that?
Oh, back then it was Bob Backlund was down there. Buddy Colt,
Mhm.
Bill Watts. We learned a lot from Eddie Graham.
Right.
He'll be the first one to tell you that. Back then, oh geez, so many guys. Steve Kern was just starting.
Mhm.
Kevin was there then.
Was Dusty as political then as he is now, or was it always
No,
he didn't
no.
clash with Eddie?
No, he was absorbing Eddie too.
Okay.
Picking his brain.
Everybody was.
Everybody. If you're smart,
Right.
you know, you'd see what you could glean off of Eddie. You know, just took it all in.
So he was the man.
He had the charisma, even as a heel. He had the
Uh-huh.
charisma. You know, people wanted to like him. They were just looking for an excuse.
Right.
So when Pac Song did that, you know, the chop and all that, it was already made. You know, people wanted to like him.
Now Gary Hart was down there.
Gary Hart was managing Pac Song at the time.
So that was probably the first time you were down there with another manager. kinda?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Was there any?
I was a little intimidated because Gary, you know, had the reputation.
How was he? Towards you at
It was
first.
fabulous.
Right. Okay.
Not a problem from day one. We got along. We're still good friends to this day.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, never been a problem with me and Gary.
What did you learn the most off of Gary Hart?
Oh, how to lay out a story on an interview. I mean, Gary was a great storyteller.
This was your first place where you actually had a TV with the interviews, kind
When
of.
they really meant something, because in Montreal, a lot of French-speaking people. So
Not gonna understand, right?
exactly. So I mean, this is the first where you had to step up your game a little bit for me, you know, in Florida. And Gary was a great teacher for me down there.
What'd you find out was the most difficult things the first couple of years of managing? Was it the getting the heel heat crowd? Was it the interviews? Was it the mic work, live mic work? Was
I think it was.
the traveling.
I think it was actually learning to deal with the crowd, you know, because we were always out there with them. You know, managers were always out there with them, and learning that. I mean, a lot of managers would do something like grab a leg or something, then stand there and face the ring when the people are advancing on them. Well, the first thing you learn is if you do something like that, you turn and put your back to the apron so you can see them coming.
Right.
At least you got a chance. You know?
Right.
So I mean, that was probably the psychology of the crowd. I think was the first thing I reached out.
What crowd was harder, Florida or Montreal?
Well, Montreal, they wanted to fight you going to the ring.
Oh, right.
Yeah, many times. It's always the same guys. You know, we go to towns up north in Quebec, Chicoutimi, and Trois-Rivières, Three Rivers, and you know, it was fighting going to the ring, let alone coming back.
Security probably didn't care too much, anyways, did they?
Well, no, because they saw Jacques every day. You know, they
Right.
didn't see us. They could
Right.
care less about us. But they saw Jacques and Pierre every day. You know. But I mean, you know, it was really rough up there in Montreal. They they had riots on regular occasions, and the ring would always fill up with chairs, just about. You know.
Who else did you manage in Florida? Anybody else?
I was just with the Hollywood Blondes
Right.
until about 1977.
Okay.
No, I'll take that back. When I went to we went to L.A. in '75.
Okay.
And out there, I expanded the house. And not only had the Blondes, but I had Greg Valentine,
Mm-hmm.
another guy by the name of Choi Sun, who's a Korean martial arts guy.
Okay.
And that was when I first started handling other talent.
Okay, so you went from Florida then to L.A.
Yep.
You went back to Florida though occasionally.
Oh
or-
yeah.
Yeah. So you were going back and forth.
Yeah, probably. More, most of my career was spent in Florida.
What was Gene LaBelle like?
Gene LaBelle was a very interesting individual. I still see him all the time. In fact,
Oh,
I'll see him
really?
next week when I go to Cauliflower Alley.
Okay.
He's still very much involved in that. Gene is a very talented guy. He could work, his wrestling work wasn't that great, but I mean, he had all the credentials as a shooter. He knew his chokes and stuff like that, mixed martial arts stuff. He was a character. He was fun to be around.
How was the company like in L.A.?
The wrestling company?
Yeah, just
They had a nice little territory. I mean, that was a perfect little spot.
was Piper there at the time? Or?
No, this is pre-Piper.
Pre-Piper.
Yeah, this is 75. I don't think Roddy came down there until late 70s. Yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway, they had a nice little territory. They had the main towns were Bakersfield, San Bernardino, San Diego, L.A. We'd work L.A. twice a week, once for the TV, once for the house show. Bakersfield once a week, San Bernardino once a week, San Diego once a week. Then they run a little spot show here and there. So I mean, San Bernardino's like 90 miles from L.A. and San Diego's about 120.
What was Fuji down there?
No.
Mr. Fuji? Okay. Who else was down there at the...
When I was down there, let's see, John Tolis.
How was he like?
John's a great guy, great talent. Was very over in L.A.
Mm-hmm.
Freddie Blassie was in for a while when we were there.
Freddie was...
Freddie was
He's
the
kind of
king
winding down.
Yeah, he was winding down the career, but he's still the king of L.A.
Right. Is Ray Stevens?
No,
No.
Ray was still in San Francisco.
San Francisco, okay.
I'm trying to think of who else was in L.A. with us. A guy by the name of Butcher Brannigan was there.
Was Rocky Johnson in at the time or no? when you were there?
Don't think Rocky was in. Rocky, I think, came in and out a couple times. when I
Right.
was there. But they had a pretty good crew in there.
Mm-hmm. Did they use any Mexican guys, or did you ever go down?
Oh, Gordon and Goliath.
Okay.
With us, yeah.
What,
We worked with them a lot down there.
did you, you also, how come you didn't manage the Blondes when they went to Tennessee?
Nick already had a manager up there. I'm not even sure who it was now.
So this was in Knoxville? Or Nashville?
No, it was Nashville,
Nashville, okay.
Goulas already had a manager there. It might have been J.C. Dykes or it might have been Homer Odell or something.
Mhm.
But he didn't want another manager, which, like we talked about earlier, back in those days, was
One
one
guy,
manager.
right.
So they left and went up there, and I stayed in Florida. I started managing Superstar Billy Graham and Ox Baker at that point.
Okay. That was 77?
That was about 76.
76, okay.
75 were in L.A. Late part of 75, most of 76, we went to Mid-South, back when Leroy McGurk still owned the territory.
Okay, before Watts.
Before Watts. Watts was there working, but he wasn't.
He was under Leroy.
Yeah. I think he might have been booking.
What happened?
Leroy.
Was there a story with Watts how he got the company? Or he just bought the company, or was
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation.
Yeah, I heard it
about
was
that, and I
something-
don't feel comfortable talking about something I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But there was a lot of speculation about
Okay. Were you in at the time when the transfer happened?
that. No.
What year was that? 70.
70. We were there in late 75 and most of 76.
So you were still at the Blondes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That was after LA. I left LA and went to Mid-South there.
Who'd you find was the toughest tag team that the Blondes went up against throughout all your territories in your first 3-4 years when you were in the business?
Probably the Vachon brothers.
Right.
Butcher Vachon and Maurice.
You learned the most probably from them too, or?
Learned a lot from them.
Mm-hmm.
They were so over in Montreal. They were like gods.
Was there any guys at the time that maybe took liberties on the manager? Like, this guy's a manager.
There was a few guys, that tried this and that, but I was very lucky that my team always stood up for me.
Right.
When something happened like that, back then you didn't get to the manager. You just didn't get to him.
Right.
This was part of an angle or something.
Right.
So there were guys that would try stuff like that, but the Blondes would always straighten them out.
Were they teaching you stuff in the ring too, or?
No, as far as
No.
wrestling, you mean?
Yeah.
No.
Could you bump or?
Oh yeah.
You can bump, but nothing. to?
I couldn't have put together a match or anything like that.
Okay.
The few times I did work back then, I was in the ring with somebody that knew what they were doing.
Right.
Got the most out of me. You know?
So, okay, back in Florida, you were back there. How was Ox Baker? You see Ox Baker now. We see him around here. He's a pretty
Same way then as
loud
it was
and interesting character.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
How was Billy Graham like?
Superstar this is back when he still had the blonde hair. In fact, in '76, I think it was just prior to the time that he went back to New York and
When he won the belt.
had that run up there, and phenomenal. I mean, the guy's just.
Is he in the best shape of anybody you ever saw?
Yeah.
How bad was he known at the time for his use of what he was taking?
No, it wasn't as prevalent
Then.
even to talk about it.
Right.
I mean, there was certainly guys doing it and all that, but it was never talked about that much.
Right.
Plus, the guys didn't know what they know now.
Mm.
Back then, back then they had no idea what it would do to you.
Yeah. How was the scene like? I think we did and we were talking with Bobby Heenan. We said like how a lot of the wrestlers now, prescription drug use and all that. They said like a lot of like the '60s, '70s, they just drank.
Yeah.
Does that still in that time? Is that what
it was still mainly drinking? Yeah. There's still pills around,
Right.
Pain pills and Valium and stuff like that.
But it wasn't as bad as what you see today or anything.
No.
How did you adjust managing to Billy Graham, Ox Baker, or anything like that?
Pretty much kept doing what I was doing,
right.
Because I was kind of over in Florida by that point, They'd see me with the blondes for so many times. I didn't change much.
Were you kind of like maybe like, oh, this is good, I'm breaking out, doing something different?
Yeah, I felt that way. At first I was a little unsure, because I had that comfort zone of the Hollywood blondes around me, and they took good care of me. And then striking out with a couple other guys, it was a whole new deal for me, and I was a little apprehensive. But, I mean, Superstar was great to me. Certainly didn't need me in his corner. He was a great talker, total package. He certainly didn't need me, but he was kind enough to let me go to the ring.
Did Eddie Graham treat you any differently since?
No, Eddie always treated me well.
Okay, well, I mean, maybe more he treated you, he respected you even more because then you did go to L.A., you went to Oklahoma.
I don't think that really had a bearing on it. I mean, the first time we worked in Florida for Eddie, right from the very start, he treated me well. So I've got no complaints that way at all. It didn't change when we came back and they left and I went in a different direction or anything. He was always very supportive.
What was some of the best angles or your favorite memorable angles you did at that time? Lincoln, Florida?
Well, we did the bench press thing with Joe LeDuc one time at the Bayfront Center. Superstar Graham and Joe LeDuc.
Joe LeDuc is strong or as tough as crazy?
Joe was a wonderful guy. I both managed him at different points of our careers. Also worked against him, and just a fabulous guy.
Did he have a reputation, or I read somewhere a couple?
Joe was kind of a wild man.
Some of the guys maybe didn't like him because they thought.
I don't think anybody didn't like Joe. I think everybody loved Joe.
Okay.
But he did. He was a wild man.
Okay.
He was a citizen of the world, I tell you. And everything that entails. But a great guy, fabulous guy, and I miss him so much.
Was Gary Hart at that time when you came back in '77? Was he still in the?
No, Gary had the plane crash.
Okay, what happened?
When I was in L.A., that was when Gary went down with Buddy Colt.
Okay.
And Dennis McCord turned out to be Austin Idol later on in his career.
What happened with that?
Bobby Shane was killed in that crash.
Oh, how many guys were in that? 4 guys?
Well, it was Bobby Shane who was killed.
Uh-huh.
Buddy Colt was flying. Gary Hart and Austin Idol. 4 of them. Coming back from Miami.
Where they crashed? Was it on the runway or?
Well, they come back from Miami Beach and they had problems getting into Tampa International. There was fog or something that night, and Buddy didn't have his instrument rating. He just had his visual. And they rerouted him. Instead of going into Tampa International, they had him go into Davis Island. which is a kind of a small airport just off of, it's called Peter O. Knight Airport on Davis Island, which is just off of downtown Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
And crashed maybe, I guess, about 300, 400 feet offshore.
Oh, into the water?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Bobby Shane he died.
Bobby Shane died. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I had just seen Bobby Shane now. Had just been in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Came back to the States, came through LA when we were out there.
Uh-huh.
Then went on to Florida. Bobby Shane was a tremendous talent. You know, just anybody's guess how far he would have gone in this business if he lived, you know. But I just saw him prior to the time he went to Florida. Then we heard about a couple months after that he had died.
Right. So you worked in Australia too?
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't. He came back. You saw him.
Bobby
Okay.
was in Australia.
Okay.
Then he came back, stopped on the West Coast for a few days.
So you were back in Florida. Then at that time, is that when you went back to Amarillo for the last tour, or where'd you pop?
See, this was 76 and 77.
Yeah.
78.
Was Dusty still down there?
Yeah, oh yeah.
He was still hot.
Oh yeah,
Always.
red hot. Yeah, from there, I think it was about 78 that I went to Amarillo
Mm-hmm.
for Funks. And I managed a guy by the name of Mr. Pogo.
Yeah,
He's
I know.
now a hardcore legend.
Yeah.
This is when he first started.
I was in Japan the night he got paralyzed. I saw it live.
Yeah, yeah,
It was in
yeah.
like '96. So
I haven't seen him since about that time. Well, I guess he was in Florida with me in about 1980.
Yeah.
And then that was about the last time I'd seen him.
And then I think he was in there with Muda, wasn't he? When Muda first.
I don't.
It was with them in Puerto Rico.
That was
I think.
Kendo Nagasaki. That was
Okay.
Muda.
Pogo and Kendo were in Puerto Rico then.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. But yeah, in Amarillo I had Pogo, and I had Hans Schroeder, a German guy.
Okay.
And Tim Brooks would come in and out for shows that I managed him. And the original Sheik
Would come
in
down.
and out, manage him.
How was Pogo?
How was he?
Yeah, good guy.
Yeah, yeah, very
Yeah.
good guy, yeah. This is before he went off the deep end, I guess.
Yeah. Talks like this with the
Yeah, I see.
drinks all the gasoline and.
I haven't seen any of that stuff. You know,
Yeah.
I just hear from people.
I've seen a lot of it. I saw. Yeah.
It's crazy. I don't know what's he thinking. You know?
I don't know. It's crazy stuff.
Uh,
I don't think he really works much.
he
anymore.
didn't get it from me. put it
No.
that way.
Okay. He got really hurt. I don't think he really works anymore. Maybe he'll come and make like a.
He's no spring chicken anymore.
Nah, he'll make like a surprise legendary thing, but
Come out and blow himself up.
probably. Yeah.
I
Was it Onita down there?
I never got the sense of that. I don't know.
Was Onita down there with him when you were down there?
No.
How was the Funks? Well, Terry wasn't there, you said, really.
Terry was on the road a lot, yeah.
How was Junior?
Junior was good. Junior was over big time. We had Junior and Ricky. Booking the territory back then was Art Nelson.
Hmm.
Art Nelson as the Super Destroyer who was under the hood.
Hmm.
Art was a funny guy. Art back then would wear the hood, but he still bleached his hair blonde. I said, why would he do that if he's got a hood covering him? So I don't know. Art was a strange guy, but he was very knowledgeable and very smart guy.
How was the Sheik down there?
Sheik, just box office, you know.
Right.
Brought him into Amarillo, not Amarillo, Lubbock, Texas one time.
Did you manage him?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, when we bring him in, yeah. In fact, the time we brought him into Lubbock, the promoter in Lubbock, Texas was Nick Roberts.
Okay.
And Nick Roberts
Isn't
was
that Baby Doll's father?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
She had a snake, so we'd borrow her snake when the Sheik would come in.
Oh, okay.
And the Sheik would use her snakes. Oh, he was wild. He chased those cowboys up to the balcony with that snake, you know.
So the fans are.
Oh, they'd scatter.
Yeah.
They'd just scatter, you know.
He was the one guy that the people.
Yeah.
How was was Terry down?
His gimmick, you know, the Sheik gimmick was so good. He was such a...
He would work in the locker room. So we seen him once when we were with ECW. He was in the locker room.
Yeah.
His last match, '94. He was working the boys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
He was always on, Sheik was always
Yeah.
on. But a great guy. I miss him a lot, too.
Did you see Terry at all down there, or sometimes?
Yeah, Terry
How
would
was he
come in.
like? Was he crazy as he is now? Terry's the
always been
best.
nuts.
So.
He's always been that way.
Right.
Crazy, you know, about half crazy. I love him, you know. Managed Terry a lot, you know, in Florida and that too. So
How was the style in Amarillo?
very wrestling style, wrestling oriented. Old Man Funk was a you know, well, he'd use the occasional gimmick like Sheik
Yeah.
or something like that, but it was a wrestling territory.
What year did Senior die?
Senior died in about 1973 or 4.
Okay. So did
So I
you-
just started. I never met the old man.
Okay.
No.
So you just Junior and
Yep.
Ricky were.
Yep, Junior and Terry, and yeah, the old man died. I think the year I started, which would have been '73.
Hmm. Was Murdoch down there?
Murdoch was in and out of there.
Okay. I heard. You know, I never met Murdoch, but I heard
Yeah.
he's.
Hell of a guy,
I always thought he had the best punch in the business.
no doubt, no doubt. Hell of a worker, hell of a guy. You couldn't be in the same room with Dickie and not be laughing all the time. Just great guy.
Did you? Was it easy for you, or I guess with the promoters where you could go to here to there? Seems like it was easier then to do that.
Well, there's like 33 different places to go in North America, you know,
Right.
between Canada and the United States.
It seems like the promoters work together more than what they would do now.
Well, yeah, you know, if back in those days, if a guy was having a problem with a program or a finish, most of them would call Eddie, because Eddie was that smart, you know. He could
Right.
give them the way out if they painted themselves into a corner or something. You know, Eddie would figure out the way out. And, you know,
So it's funny that Eddie would help out other companies.
well, but they all kind of were together, you know, under the banner of the NWA, and it was a confederation of owners, you know.
Do you think it was kind of tough maybe for some outside promoters to get in?
Well, there was an outside promoter.
They wouldn't allow.
I mean,
any-
there was Outlaw.
outlaw, but I mean, like, say, what if Vern decided, hey, I want to be in part of the NWA? Would they?
Yeah, that wouldn't happen. See,
Okay, there was.
they respected each other's areas and territories.
Who was all in the NWA? What were the main? There was Florida, you know.
Well, yeah, for a while, New York.
Uh-huh.
You had Crockett in the Mid-Atlantic
Mhm.
area. You had Florida. You had Atlanta. You had going west. You'd had the Mid-South area, Mississippi. Alabama was NWA.
Fullers, right?
Fuller's, Tennessee. Just about everything south of like Kansas City South
Hmm.
was all NWA.
Did you, after Amarillo time, then you worked in Central States too, right?
Yep, I sure did. I went up there for Harley in about 19. Geez, I'm thinking about 1982, maybe. No, I'm so bad at dates. Maybe 84 or something
Right.
like that. Yeah.
But Florida seems to be the one place where you kept going back to.
It was the ideal place to be, brother.
Right.
Beach, sun, warm temperatures in the wintertime,
Easy drives.
easy trips. I mean, it was ideal.
Good wrestling. There's always.
Yeah, the money wasn't, the money wasn't as great, and people always say that. Well, the money wasn't as great, but making $100 to make Orlando is like making $300 to make New Orleans out of Tulsa. I'd rather do that little Tampa to Orlando trip, make $100 and go from Tulsa, Oklahoma to New Orleans and make $300. So it was ideal that way.
What company had the best payoffs? Do you think? Territory.
Just made good money in Montreal. Those guys were very fair up there.
Hmm.
We made decent money in Florida. Like I said, you didn't spend anything because you weren't on the road.
Right.
And Amarillo wasn't drawing that well when I was there, so that wasn't really that hot. But
Central States, I heard, was pretty low.
Central States is pretty low too. Again, they weren't drawing that well. L.A. was another short territory, so if you made $100 there, it was like making $300 anywhere else.
What did you enjoy the most up to that time? Was it Florida?
Oh yeah,
Obviously,
absolutely, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They had the best. They had the most cohesive booking strategies, and they had the most good. The towns were all good towns, and it was just a good atmosphere.
Was there one promoter, or like it's just like, I don't want to work for this guy, I just can't stand working for this guy? Was there anybody, or not that you have to bury anybody, but
No, I don't,
One guy you
I
just
don't care. It's been
dislike.
so many years,
Yeah.
if I could think of one, but I don't think there was anybody I really didn't like.
right.
I liked other guys better than other guys.
Uh-huh.
I don't think there was anybody I'd say it wouldn't work for.
Going back to I guess Florida, back in the '80s, I guess early '80s. Eddie, what year did Eddie Graham die? He 85, right?
85-ish.
Okay. But business was going pretty good 82, 83.
It was trugging along, yeah.
Sullivan was been there.
Yeah.
Sullivan was hot.
Yeah.
Dusty was hot.
Yeah.
Who would you end up then? Like in the, I guess, I don't know. Did you say that was the Florida heyday of the 80s, or?
I think the Florida heydays were from 74 to 84.
Yeah. I think people say, like, especially people my age, you know, they always think, oh, Kevin Sullivan with the gimmick he did and everything. That was, I think that got the most notoriety, like, in the magazines.
Well, it was because it was so different, too,
right.
you know?
Did you find that, like, did you think that something that different could do that good of business?
Well, I knew it could because nobody else was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was something that nobody else had done before. But it was also a fine line that we walked. We didn't want to get too, you know, it was very, when you do a gimmick like that, you can't go overboard.
Right.
Sometimes if you say something just to have people think and not really tell them right out, but let them think of it, you know?
Right.
Like, what the heck is this guy talking
Wasn't something happened with Mulligan or something where they got a lot of complaints with something with blood on TV with something Sullivan did, and they like got thrown off TV or I don't know what happened.
I don't think it was anything major like that.
Really?
I don't recall ever being thrown off TV.
Somebody said something that they got a lot of heat. Or
Well, back then it was, you know, back then, remember the anti-violence? You probably don't because you're too young, but there was a big anti-violence campaign on TV.
Okay.
So wrestling really had a total line back
Is that
then.
kind of how they had the, what was it, the DVD that Sheik did? Was it Stop the Sheik? Or how
Oh, yeah.
Was it similar?
It's, I like to hurt people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's something similar to that, I guess?
Yeah,
Kind of, but not.
Kind of, but not.
Right, right.
Yeah. There was a big movement that was too much violence on TV.
Mm-hmm.
They even went so far as to say cartoons for kids are too violent and all that. You know.
Like now they're doing with video games, I guess.
Yeah,
kind of.
well, I guess, but
The believability was still there, correct?
the video games today are violent.
Yeah.
I mean, the blood, the shoot the cabbie with the thing.
Right.
Back then, though, it wasn't. You know, they were just down on violence, and they were down on, you know, any kind of thing like that. You know, even, you know, they'd always call wrestling fake, and oh, that's all fake. You know, but boy, when it came time to get on somebody's case about something, it was always wrestling.
Right.
You know, you're too hot. You can't do this. You can't do that.
Back in then, who were you managing then, like in the 80s, like at that time, like?
Oh, during the 80s, Kevin mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you with Kevin when he made his original transition to that character?
No, I came in after that.
Okay. Where were you at that time when he?
I think I was probably finishing up in Kansas City.
Okay. How long were you there for? A while?
Kansas City? Or?
Yeah.
I was in Kansas City about a year, I guess.
Right.
I really went there as kind of a favor to Harley, you know.
Right.
Harley had just dropped a strap to, must have been Flair.
Yeah. I think 81 maybe? Or
Yeah. It was right around that time frame, and Harley was going to be going home to Kansas City to work and try to get the territory off his
Right.
house and all that. And that's what I did.
Were you in the territory when Harley had the thing with, where he went to Kemper Arena with a shotgun?
No,
Did you hear about that?
I did hear about that. That was a Hulk Hogan, man.
Yeah.
No, that was after I left it. Yeah.
Who did you feel just was the best of the NWA World Champions?
I
Briscoe.
don't think anybody was better than Harley.
Harley was the best.
Yeah. Terry was good. Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking these guys.
Mm.
Terry was good. Junior was good. Briscoe was great. But I think Harley, he'd have to get the Iron Man award. You know?
Was there something? Somebody was saying something about with the NWA World Title that they wouldn't drop it to a baby face or something with the and like Dory like faked an injury or something, skiing or something.
Oh, I remember. I think, yeah, that's a legend that's going around about how Old Man Funk didn't want one of the kids to put Jack over.
Right.
That's what it was.
Right.
I have no first name knowledge
Right.
of that, so.
But the NWA.
I've heard the stories, but that's all
Right.
I can tell you.
The NWA title at that time was just big business.
That was a
though.
big business.
When they brought the champion in, did it really boost?
Oh, yeah.
Like
absolutely.
it was
Especially in Florida. Now, I can't tell you how it was all over.
a.
But when the NWA champ came to Florida, it meant something.
Mm-hmm. Was Harley really over when he? Who was the most over champion in Florida when you were down there? Did you think that drew the best?
Probably Terry and Harley.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What other big feuds down there when you went back to Florida? it was when Sullivan first started. He was doing his thing. We were talking about the, I guess, the violence and everything, maybe the fine line of taking it. What was some of the things you thought maybe with that angle that might have gone too far? Was there any, or?
Well, we did, but I look back on now and having the benefit of force or hindsight rather. I think some of the stuff we did with the women and that I think was a little bit stretching the line a little bit.
Okay.
You know, we had Nancy who was with us back then, and we also had the Lock who was Winona Littleheart, great talent. And
did they take some of that stuff maybe from what the Sheik was doing with the snake
well,
and the girl?
I think it all goes back to that because Sheik was the first one to kind of use
right.
that. You know?
Didn't the Sheik's wife
Joyce?
Joyce? He used her, didn't back a long time ago.
She was the original slave girl.
Right. Is that where Sullivan got maybe?
Well, I'm sure because Kevin and Eddie were very close.
Right.
Yeah.
Who came up with a lot of the stuff like with the the burying of the belt and the beach and Malcolm
Well, that was
coming
Kevin.
from the
That was
sea.
Kevin.
It was all Kevin.
Mind, yeah. Kevin pretty much had free reign to go whatever way he wanted to go with it, you know. And we did some bizarre stuff. You know, we brought Purple Haze out of the water with Mark Lewin.
How is he? I heard he's pretty
Mark
good.
is a great guy, man. I miss Mark a lot. I heard he's in Seattle living now.
Okay.
And he's a great guy and a great talent, and we always had good times, Mark and Kevin and
I heard
I. King Curtis too. And
King Curtis. How was he as a manager?
Phenomenal. I love King Curtis. He's a great guy. I'd love to get over to Hawaii to see him because his health is not really as good as it was. But I think King Curtis and Mark Lewin probably the best heels I've ever seen.
At that time, I guess it was. Did J.J. Dillon come down? Was he in Florida?
Dillon might have been coming down working as a wrestler back then, but he didn't really. He wasn't. Well, yeah, he did manage down there in the '80s too. When I wasn't there, Dillon was there.
Oh, when you weren't there,
Yeah.
he was there. Okay, so there was never any clash or anything.
No. In fact,
that,
I managed Dillon when I was in Kansas City.
oh, okay.
Jim was there booking, helping with the book, and I managed him there.
How did you get along? Did you get along good with the bookers, or?
Oh yeah, generally, yeah. I had pretty good ideas, and I would give them stuff, and they'd run stuff by me, and between the two of us, we'd hammer out some pretty good stuff.
Also, I guess at that time, Percy Pringle, was he down there?
Percy was in and out again when I wasn't there. Percy.
Okay, when you weren't there. Okay.
Yeah, there was more than one manager in Florida.
Okay, so that was still going on at that time.
Yeah.
How did Dusty was with Sullivan? Did they get along good?
Very well. Yeah, very very well. When you work with somebody every night like they did, I mean, you gotta have respect and trust and everything in each other. And Dusty and Kevin were always very close. Still are.
How was memories of managing Bruiser Brody?
Oh, Frank. I mean, there's nobody like him. Nobody. Such a tragic end too. I find it hard to believe him to this day that he's gone and the way he went and everything. He was a trip, man. Every night with Frank was something new. Frank I put in the same categories with Abdullah and the Sheik and the great wild guys that I used to manage.
Did you like managing Abdullah?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I love the gimmick type guys.
Right.
Guys you can get your teeth into.
Right.
And guys like Eddie was, and like Abdullah was, and like Brody was, you didn't have to worry about because they knew their gimmick. They went out there and did their thing. And I just kind of hung on for the ride.
Right.
It was great.
Right. Did you ever work Puerto Rico?
Nope.
No.
Well, I'll take that back. I think one time back in '74, Eddie went over there to Roberto Clemente, and I think I was there then. But this is before Carlos.
Okay. Is that when Monsoon was running? Was Monsoon there running when he had it?
I don't believe so. I think Eddie just went in there. I believe it was just one time when I was there in '74. Me and the Blondes went over. But it was very dangerous there.
Yeah.
Very, very dangerous.
I heard also Bahamas, they would run. I heard that's crazy. The crowds
Rocks, bottles. They had chicken wire around the entire ring, so people couldn't throw
Right.
crap in the ring, but they still hit you with everything. Going to and
I
from.
forget who it was we just did an interview. They said
Very dangerous spot. Beautiful spot, but very dangerous.
they were something happened. There was a big riot.
I wouldn't go unless, it was a major deal or if I was actually wrestling or something like that, because it was just too dangerous. I wouldn't go over there.
So was that good business though for the company, or?
Oh yeah, yeah. Nassau always drew well, and Freeport did well for the Florida office too. Good towns.
Coco Samoa, is that his? He was like the main. Was he one of the main Bahamas guys, or?
No, you're thinking of Tyree Pride.
Pride. Okay, that's right. That's right.
Coco Samoa was a different guy.
That's right. Tyree Pride.
Tyree Pride, yeah, he was a Bahamian, and he drew pretty well over there.
Memories of were you the night of Brody and Lex Luger
I was there.
in the cage?
I stood
What
in the
happened?
corner. I stood in the corner. The way I remember it, Luger had just started, of course, in business, and didn't know too much. And the boys, baby faces in Florida, were telling him, "Oh my God, Brody's coming in, romping, stomping,
Right.
do anything, capable of anything, just trying to put a scare in Lex,
Right.
Well, the incident you're talking about happened in Fort Lauderdale. It was a cage match between Frank and Bruiser, and Bruiser just kind of no-sold him, and Luger panicked and climbed out and left.
What did you do? Just do it because Luger was Luger?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Did he have a big head, or at the time, or?
I don't like to talk bad about anybody.
Yeah.
But he did have a big head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's brand new, green as grass. There's a certain pecking order. I mean, when I started in business, I used to walk in the dressing room. I wouldn't open my mouth.
Right.
First year, I wouldn't open my mouth.
Right.
I just sat in the corner and watched. I was scared to death. Because these guys back then, their noses were here and their big cauliflower ears, and looked the part.
Right.
So I didn't say much for the first year or so.
Right.
And that's kind of the way it was when you started.
Mhm.
You just kept your mouth shut and listened. And a lot of guys later didn't do that.
Right. Did some of it might have been a little jealousy maybe on Luger's part because he was getting pushed, even though he really never.
I don't think Frank was jealous of him, but I think he.
Maybe not Frank, but maybe some of the other guys.
Well, yeah.
Who was the main guy in Florida that was pushing him? Was it Dust or
Matsuda.
Matsuda was
the guy
pushing?
that trained him. Yeah.
Right.
This is after Dusty was gone. That Luger
Okay.
started. And Matsuda's one that trained him, broke him in, trying to get the guy over to draw money for us down there.
Maybe looking at it as like a Hulk Hogan type thing, maybe.
Yeah, I'm
Hogan.
sure. He had the body and all that, but some guys pick it up faster than other guys, and Lex didn't really pick it up that fast.
How much different was Billy Graham when he came back?
Totally different. Totally different. He had been to New York, and it was rough on him when they took the belt off him there. And I think he's right. I think if they would have switched to babyface, he'd probably still be there.
Mm-hmm.
So that really bothered him a lot.
Is he in a depression maybe, or?
I'm sure.
Tell his whole body, everything.
Yeah, he was
changed.
a lot smaller than he was. And he was doing the karate gimmick back then.
Right.
Shaved his head.
Kind of out of shape towards it.
No, it wasn't really out of shape. I mean, he still worked out hard. He looked good. But
Right.
not the former superstar.
Right.
I'm sure that took a lot out of him, though. Because, he could see it and everybody could see it, but the old man wanted to go with the kid, the backlinks.
Mm-hmm. Well, did you try to tell Luger anything, help him out at all, or?
We all tried,
Right.
but pretty soon it's like, why should I be knocking myself out if this guy's not going to listen?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much how it was.
How was it? How were the Wyndhams? Blackjack.
Always got along great
Barry
with
Kendall.
Wyndham's, yeah. Barry, I saw him, from the first time he started.
Mm-hmm.
He was probably skinny, he was like Kendall was
Right.
back then. He's only, I think, 19 years old or something like that. And became a fabulous worker. Barry had everything. Barry had all the tools. And Kendall was, Kendall's maligned a lot, but Kendall turned into a pretty good worker.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Blackjack. Nobody liked Blackjack.
Right.
He's the best.
How were you there? We heard the story, I guess, from Bill Alfonso. Were you there? Were you in the car when Piper jumped into the canal with the alligator?
No.
You hear about it?
Stories like that happen all the time. I was with we were coming back from Miami one night. I was in the car behind the sheep herders,
Uh-huh.
or the bushwhackers
Right.
later on, and they hit a wild boar. So, I mean, it was like Zoo Parade coming back from Miami back then. It wasn't a freeway. It was just a road going across the Everglades, Alligator Alley.
Yeah.
So you hit all sorts of shit
Right.
out there in the middle of the night, you know.
Yeah, I've been out there a couple times.
Yeah, scary back then too, because there was no, I mean, you're
It's flat, nothing.
30 miles from anything out there, you know. So one night they hit the wild boar. We saw him pulled over, so we pulled over. As we got out of the car, there's Butch and Luke, the butcher and the fucking hog. Well, you know, you saw stuff like that all the time.
Right.
But I remember the story of Fonzie threw the alligator in the back, in the trunk.
And it was, the mouth was broken, but they're like, hey, look at this. And they open up and Piper put his head between the thing, but he knew that the alligator
Yeah, no, I don't know if that's the same story, but Fonzie told me one time that they had hit one.
Right.
And they thought it was dead, so they took and threw it in the trunk.
Uh-huh.
So about 30 miles down the road, they all of a sudden they hear
Oh, no.
flopping around the trunk. The gator was just stunned or something. You know?
Right.
And now he's ready to go, so.
That's crazy.
I can't remember how the story ends, but I remember a lot of stuff like that.
Person from Minnesota, you were probably like, oh.
We don't have alligators
Nope.
in Minnesota.
Any other, like, crazy, out-of-the-ring stories
Well, I don't know.
come to
Just-
mind? Anything?
Just, you know, it was always a lot of fun. I mean, you know, the boys played hard and they worked hard, you know.
Mhm.
So, you know, just different goofy stuff, you know. Nothing I can recall right now, but it was always something. It was always something going on.
Did you know the Von Eriksen, or?
I didn't really meet or get close to the kids until I believe I was working in Kansas City at the time,
Uh-huh.
and would work in St. Louis out of the Kansas City office.
Kerry, they would all come up here.
Carrie and Kevin and
Didn't David come in as a heel in Florida, didn't he? Or
I
you weren't
wasn't there then.
Okay.
No, that was the time when I wasn't there. I think I might have been in Kansas City when he was there. But all three of the boys, David, Kevin, and Carrie, were very, very close to me. I met them through Gary Hart,
Mm-hmm.
because Gary would bring Kabuki into St. Louis. Of course, the boys would come in there. You know, we'd all get together after the show, the boys and Gary and I. And, you know, they were great kids. I mean, great kids and talented kids. Just makes no sense, the whole story. You know?
At one point, you went to Mid-Atlantic.
Yep.
How's Crockett?
Crockett was good working up there. It was good working. I guess I was there, and I want to say must have been there in about 82 and 83, I think.
Before Dusty.
Before Dusty. Well, yeah, actually during the transition when Dusty. When I first got there, Ole was booking.
Right.
And then I think Junior took the book from Ned, and then Dusty came in after Junior.
Yeah.
So I was in during that transition period.
Heard Ole was kind of a.
Ole was different to work with. I don't have a problem with Ole, and Ole doesn't
he's
have
okay.
a problem with me. I still see him, you know, occasionally at Fan Fest and that. We always get along. But Ole was a very smart guy.
Memories of one-man gang, Jimmy Valiant. I think there's a couple of the guys down there at the time.
Yeah, I managed a gang. I had a lot of guys in Mid-Atlantic over the years. Ivan Koloff,
Uh-huh.
One Man Gang, Joe LeDuc,
Uh-huh.
guys like that. And basically it was much like my position in Florida, where Dusty was the main babyface, and I would bring all the heels in to fight him. Well, it's kind of reversed in that Jimmy was the main man in Mid-Atlantic, and I would bring the heels to do battle with him.
Right.
So I'd run Koloff through him, and Gang through him, and Joe LeDuc through him.
So Jimmy Valiant's a pretty effective babyface at the time.
Jimmy Valiant is a great, great guy, man. He's super. Have you met him?
Yeah, I actually met him for the first time 3 weeks ago at a show.
He's a very good guy, very nice guy. He was hotter than Georgia Asphalt up there
Right.
in Mid-Atlantic. I mean, he was red hot.
Right.
And yeah, every night with Jimmy, I mean, every night for like 6-8 months I spent. You know,
Right.
different heel, you know.
Memories of Ric Flair.
Rick is a Minnesota boy, Minneapolis boy.
Mm-hmm.
I had just started, I think, about the time that Rick started.
So you
And
knew
Rick's-
him from up there.
I really didn't know him. I think Rick started about 73,
Okay.
72 or 73.
So you probably were in Montreal, maybe.
So I just started about the time that Rick did.
Okay.
But we'd been together a lot of different places, you know.
How was he?
Oh, I never had a problem with Rick, you know. I don't know why he's wrestling now, but, you know.
Where does he get it?
I don't know. I don't know, brother. Tires me out watching him.
What are some of your favorite matches from this time? Maybe where you're at ringside and you lose perception that you're managing and you're almost like a fan there. You're like, you just get caught up in the moment. Like, what's some of the matches at a time where you're like, you have to snap into it, like, oh, wow.
Mm. There's been many. It's so hard to recall one, you know.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of times where I wouldn't even know the finish going on.
Uh-huh.
You know, if I wasn't involved, I'd say, "Don't tell me,"
Yeah.
because I want to observe
And have that
as they
surprise.
observe. Exactly. And we did that a lot. I mean, I did that a lot. If I wasn't involved directly, I just, go out and surprise me. You know?
Going back to Florida, what hurt Florida business? What do you think was the drop off?
Well, when Dusty left, that hurt a lot.
Okay.
After Eddie died, that hurt a lot. The expansion of Vince hurt a lot.
Who took the book after Eddie died? Was it Mike?
You know, I wasn't there when Eddie died. I was elsewhere when Eddie died, and I think in that, I don't think Mike had the book. Mike was a guy that, while he loved the business and everything, he didn't want to be tied to the business. He had a lot of other things going, you know. I'm thinking back then, after Eddie died, I think Michael Hayes might have had the book for a while. I'm thinking Matsuda probably had it the most back then.
Did you get along with Matsuda?
Oh, very well.
Mm-hmm.
Very well.
Memories of a Great Muta or Super Black Ninja when he
That was
started.
the first manager he had.
Mm-hmm.
Matsuda brought him into Florida. He was the White Ninja at first. And Kendo Nagasaki was there, Mr. Sakurada. And we paired them up. And he was phenomenal. I mean, from the first time I saw the guy, I knew he was going to be a big star.
Mm-hmm.
Big star. Because he could do things other people couldn't do.
Right, right.
And he had the look, too. He's a good-looking kid, you know.
Do you think maybe the Kevin on top with that going through Wyndham, through Dusty, through
Anybody
Luger?
else?
Think it went on too long? You think that maybe
I think perhaps, you know. But by that time, there was nothing else.
right?
Everybody else was either in Crockett or in New York. So it was pretty much just Kevin.
Kevin was the last one, probably one of the last
One
ones.
of the
to
last
go.
ones, yeah. One of the last ones.
And at that time, that's when the business.
We all knew it too.
You were
I mean,
you
we
were
knew
still
it.
there, weren't you?
Yeah. We knew it at the time, you know, we could see what was happening.
Did they? Was it going from the big arenas? Did they stop doing those arenas, like the big arenas, or
We still did, well, the office owned a building in Orlando.
Right.
And then we moved to a smaller building in Tampa. We still wrestled at the Miami Beach Auditorium in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the buildings were the same, but they did downsize some.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you know, like I said earlier, we could see it coming, you know, we could see what was happening.
Is that and then Luger left, right?
Luger went to JCP.
Right. And then didn't they run a lot in Florida too? I think
Yeah,
they ran
well,
the Orange Bowl that
It
one.
was a combination promotion between Crockett and Florida for a while,
Right.
where Jimmy would send down probably the top 3 matches, and the Florida guys would do the first 3 or 4 matches.
Did you see that it was kind of winding down?
Oh yeah, well, anytime your stars aren't guys that are there all the time, when your stars who you depend on drawing houses come from somewhere else, it's over.
Right. Did you see that Jim Crockett? I guess that time you went to Jim Crockett.
Hmm.
Did you see that maybe they were?
Well, he was just starting all that, you know.
I obviously was looking at that kind of like in a Vince McMahon, how Vince took over a lot of the territories. The territories were dying,
Mhm.
obviously. Jim was starting to, with Watts and all that. Did you see that maybe they're getting too big for what they're doing, and maybe that they're
Crockett?
yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think you have to really have your own backyard sewed up before you step off the block.
Mhm.
Well, he did, tremendous business in his territory. He kind of forgot about it.
Right.
And I think that hurt a lot.
Right. I mean, it's pretty big that they.
That his normal towns that he depended on started going down.
Right.
While he was concentrating on San Francisco and Los Angeles.
And then they moved to Dallas,
Chicago
right?
and towns like that. And when your home area shrivels up,
Right.
what have you got left, you know?
I think they moved to Dallas, the office, right?
Well, in the end, they did.
Yeah. And then I think one of the main things I think that what they said was well they took over Atlanta, but the whole thing is when they moved the Starcade to Chicago, I think that really
Right. Well, that was Greensboro. I mean, that was Greensboro's show.
right.
He had neglecting his own backyard to branch out.
And that's when you came in at that time, correct?
I was just at the very beginning of that. You know, when I first started for Crockett up there, it was just the territory.
Uh-huh.
But then he started branching out.
Right. What who did you manage in NWA at that time?
For Crockett?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I had
At that.
Ivan Koloff,
Hmm.
I had Gang, I had Joe LeDuc, I had Paul Jones.
But you didn't go back in '86 or '87, did you?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I did.
Did you have Bigelow?
Yes, I did.
Towards the end.
We did a thing with Vince in '87 and '88. I believe it was late '88, '89
Okay.
that we did a Starcade with Barry Windham.
Okay, so you went to Vince, then you left Vince and went back.
Went to
Okay.
WCW.
How'd you get hooked up with WWF?
You know, they called me. I think I was off back in Minneapolis, and they had Bigelow. You know, they were going to use Bigelow, and they
Right.
needed somebody to manage him. And I think it was either Patterson or Vince that called, and they wanted me to go to Madison, Wisconsin. They were going to do a show there. I met with them there, and we decided to do it there.
You worked out a deal. Were you a little
It was-
surprised?
yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised because I didn't think they used us as baby faces. I don't know if that would be heels, but they wanted us as baby faces. So
Now you were done with Florida, right?
yeah,
Florida was pretty much.
Florida was over by then. This is '80. When I went to Vince, it was '87.
Yeah, I think. What Junior had the Junior was he in? He was in Florida when it ended.
'87.
I remember he was in a couple times, and then Sullivan left, and then Kendall
Sullivan.
was in there, and I think
Yeah.
that just ended then.
I think certainly by the later part of the '80s, it was pretty much done. But then they had a little resurgence where Dusty had a little promotion there, PWF.
Oh yeah. You
So
went.
that
You
kind
went.
of, I was part of that too.
Right. Who was the initial contact at WWF with you?
I'm trying to think now. It might have been Vince. It might have been Pat Patterson. I'm not sure.
Did you have any dealings with them? Did you know Pat Patterson?
Oh, I knew Patterson. Yeah,
From.
I had never met Vince before,
Okay.
but I knew Pat. Pat and I worked together. Well, I knew Pat before I started. From Minneapolis, him and Ray Stevens. What a tag team that was.
Yeah.
You ever seen any of their stuff?
No. I mean,
Yeah.
I saw some of the Ray Stevens stuff. I read about it.
Track some of that stuff down because that's incredible.
That's the. I heard Ray Stevens was like.
This is towards the end of both of their careers. You know, when they finally left San Francisco.
Right.
Incredible stuff. I mean,
Yes.
Ray and Pat, when they came to Minneapolis, were incredible.
They tore it down.
Yeah.
So you started with WWF. How did you like it?
I loved it. I thought it was great, you know. And then it got, they were running us all over the country. I mean, you know.
I heard that the flying at that time was. But I heard that a lot of guys are saying that the way they would make the schedules was just completely off the
Oh,
wall.
it was like somebody took a dart and threw it at a board.
like San Francisco to Miami.
We did one. Me and Bigelow did one time. We wrestled. I think it was in Albany. It was either Syracuse or Rochester. I think it was. One night, San Diego the next night, back to Pittsburgh or Philadelphia or something like that the night after that. So I find myself sitting up in bed, you know, in the morning going, where do I need to be? What time is this?
Right.
So, you know, that was kind of hard that way. But I was having a good time. I was doing what I wanted to do, you know.
What's your memories of your first angle with Bigelow? Did you know Bigelow then or no?
No, never met him.
No.
Never even seen him or anything.
Really?
No. What do you mean by first angle?
Like, how did you get introduced? What was your first feelings with it? Did you feel that it was a good fit?
I did, but I could see us as heels. More
Yeah.
than baby faces, you know. I thought he had a lot of potential.
Was there any jealousy between any of the other managers? I mean, you knew Bobby.
No.
Did Bobby take well to you?
I knew, well, I met the Grand Wizard in 1975 in L.A.
Okay.
So I've known Ernie that long. You know, Ernie was dead by the time I got up there.
Right.
Bless his heart, I loved him. Blassie, of course, I'd worked with in L.A., so I knew him. And Lou Albano I had met a couple times previously. So there was never...
Jimmy Hart and Heenan, I think. Were...
Yeah, Jimmy Hart and Heenan. When I was up there was Jimmy Hart, Heenan, Slick,
Uh-huh.
and somebody else too. Fuji. Fuji-san.
Yeah.
No, never had a problem with it.
So everything was good?
Everything was good. There's plenty of, there was enough to go around. They were running 3 times a night.
Right.
Yeah.
They had sea shows.
And sea shows, yeah.
Jeez.
And then two on Saturday, 2 on Sunday.
How was it sitting out there at a big Northeast Arena show like Madison Square Garden or the Spectrum, Boston Garden with Hulk Hogan out there?
Wow.
Crazy, huh?
Can't even explain it, you know. We did a show at the Garden, sold out, Hogan and Bigelow against the Giant and DiBiase, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was either Giant and DiBiase or DiBiase and Bundy or the Giant and Bundy. One of the
Yeah. I think it was in Philly. It was DiBiase and a Giant.
Well, that could have been what it
Yeah,
was in
that's
New
what
York,
was in
too.
Philly. I remember.
But the feeling, you know, the mecca of any building, I mean, for anybody in the boxing and wrestling business, is the Garden.
Right.
And to stand in the middle of the ring at the Garden and see nothing but people, you know, it's just amazing feeling.
Was that the most people you ever worked in front of?
No.
Or
No.
Orange Bowl, maybe?
Back in '73 when I first started, they ran a show at Jerry Park where the Montreal Expos used to play.
Oh, okay.
And I think we did like, we set an outdoor attendance record. I think we did like 29,000 people.
What was the main? Were you guys in the main?
It was a double main. I believe it was Walter Killer Kowalski and Maurice Mad Dog Vachon. And then we worked with Bruno and what was his name? Parisi? It was either Parisi or
Tony Parisi or Puglisi?
Puglisi or Parisi, one of the two. So it was, yeah, that was the biggest one.
Wow.
To that point.
Wow.
A lot of folks.
Memories of Andre at this time. Did he remember you? Or
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Everything you
Yeah.
could see.
I never had a problem with him. He had a problem with Bigelow, I guess,
Yeah.
for whatever reason. I don't know. I didn't. Back then, see, when I first started, the managers would go to all the towns.
Right.
Then later on, they took all the managers off the road.
Right.
Just used us for TV. They sent us checks at the house, which was fine with me.
Right.
You know? So, yeah, I don't know what the problem became or how it started between them, but I think they did have a problem.
Yep. I remember Bigelow telling a story about Andre in Mexico,
Mhm.
where he had too many tequilas or something in the ring, took the bad bump, and
Yeah. Oh,
a
yeah.
mess all over the ring. I think that was after the fact, but
Yeah.
you think
Yeah,
Andre?
was a great guy. Towards the end of his life, you know, I think he knew he was not long for the world, and it changed his attitude and things like that. But he was always decent to me.
First WrestleMania was Atlantic City, I guess, WrestleMania 4.
Yes.
Was at the tournament. Memories of that.
Short night for me.
Right.
Worked with the gang, and I didn't like the finish. I still don't like the finish. I did that goofy thing where
I'm trying to
I
remember.
think Slick pulled the rope and Bigelow went out over the top.
Uh-huh.
It was counted out. I mean, how long did that take to figure? I think I was just, well, next, let's get this out of the way. Let's get to something else.
How's the money? Did they take care of you?
Yeah, money was always good. Always good for Vince.
What's thoughts on Dynamite Kid?
I had a good time with him. I know a lot of guys don't like him.
Were you there when the thing happened with Rougeau?
You know, I'm not sure if I was, but I think I was.
It was in Indiana somewhere.
Both the Rougeaus were there when I was there, so was Dynamite and Davey. But I never had a problem with them. If they liked you, they really liked you. If they didn't like you, they really didn't like you.
Right.
And your life was going to be miserable.
Right.
But I've always got along well with them.
The Rougeaus, was there a lot of heat in Montreal with guys who worked opposition to the Rougeaus?
There was and there wasn't. I mean, we'd see the same guys.
He never said anything to you. That was their father.
There might have been heat between the offices.
but not the boys.
but not the boys.
Right.
We'd see, I mean, the first time I met Abdullah, he was a svelte about 230, something like that, you know, he was just slim. Was on the road up there in Montreal where he was going to one town, we were going to another town, we just happened to cross paths.
Right.
We both stopped at this convenience store or liquor store or whatever it was. And that was the first time I met him. So the boys never had to eat with each other. We were all doing the same thing.
What how was Hogan though with you? Hogan was good with you?
Hogan was good with me. I knew Hogan before he started wrestling.
Up in did you know him in Montreal?
Tampa,
Or not
Florida.
in Minnesota?
Tampa, Florida.
Oh, you knew him in Tampa when he was
Yeah,
first
He
started.
was playing a band.
Right. Oh, you knew him before.
I knew him before he even started.
Oh wow.
In fact, the night, remember I told you about that that angle they did with superstar Billy Graham and Joe LeDuc at the Bayfront Center?
Right. The bench press.
Bench press gimmick. We took Hogan, superstar at a limousine, man. And we took Hogan with us over to the Bayfront Center that night.
Oh, okay.
This is before he even started.
Wow.
And yeah, I go back a long time.
Memories of Randy Savage.
Yeah, I was only around him up there in the Fed.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'd met him the first time. I was in Florida, I guess it was 76 or so. And I was living at a place in Tampa. And he lived at the same place I did. He was a ball player back then.
Uh huh.
He was a pitcher for some farm club. And that was the first time I got to know him. I think it was the St. Louis Farm Club.
Right. Yeah, I think so.
So that was the first time I met him. But, you know, I just knew him from around the complex. Didn't know him well.
You never worked up in, what was it, Lexington?
Kentucky? No,
With
never.
the father's, well, his father had the Outlaw Company against Lawler, correct?
Right.
How did those Outlaw companies survive? Did they drew though that one? I heard they drew like they were at Rupp Arena, right?
Not one office can run all the towns.
Right.
And well, they're outlaw to who? You know?
Yeah, just Outlaw to the
They're
NWA.
guys like me and everybody else trying to make a living.
Right.
So you know they call them outlaws, but what the hell?
Right. Any crazy stories you see with Savage with Elizabeth? You hear all the like locker in the
Oh yeah,
closets
he did
and-
keep her away.
He was that
He was very
jealous.
jealous and very protective of her. Yeah, she wouldn't be out among the talent, you know, prior to a match or something like that. She'd always be kind of sequestered. And
Right.
She was a lovely woman, though, just a nice girl, and always had a lot of respect and a lot of time for her.
How did you adjust to being a worldwide superstar now?
Am I?
WWF superstar.
Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that.
You were.
It's well, like we were talking earlier. I mean, it just knocks me out that people still remember, you know, what I did 30 years ago, you know, or 35 years ago. I'm flattered. I consider myself lucky to have been a part of it. I wouldn't change a thing. Well, maybe one or two, but you know, by and large, I had a great time and a great career, and I met so many people that influenced my life. And I feel blessed by my association.
Ultimate Warrior.
Ultimate Warrior.
Was he really that crazy?
He's kind of a strange dude, yeah.
Yeah.
He was strange back then, too, yeah.
Were you ever a victim of a Mr. Fuji rib?
No. Fuji would rib guys he really didn't like.
Right.
So I always was lucky to be on the good side of Fuji.
I heard a story.
Fuji was a great guy. We got along well.
I heard a story about Fuji. Rocky Johnson told us when Fuji was in L.A.
The dog story?
Well, I know that the dog food
Yeah.
with the bar. Well, who did he? The dog. and
I can't remember.
the marinated dog.
Yeah.
But then I heard a story. I forget who he was with. Somebody had to go drive to San Francisco or something, and he goes, "I want to stay awake," and he gave him like 3 Halcyon, and the guy fell asleep on the side of the road for 3 days or something. Who was it?
It sounds like a Fuji.
Oh, what was it? I forget what it.
Fuji was great that way. If he liked you, though, he normally didn't rib you.
Right.
If he didn't like you, he was on your ass big time.
Memories of Survivor Series '88. I guess when all the managers were together.
Cleveland, Ohio, yeah.
Richfield Coliseum.
Richfield Coliseum, yeah. Yeah, it's, I think it was Hogan, Don Morocco, Ken Patera, not Superstar. Trying to think of who else was on our team.
Was it Bigelow or?
Bigelow was there, yeah.
Yeah.
It was
And
Bigelow, Hogan, Don Morocco, Patera.
Sure.
I think there was one more, and I can't remember who it was. Whoever it was. But then we worked with the Giant, Bundy, Rick Rude, I believe.
Butch Reed, maybe? Is Butch Reed in there?
I don't think he was on that
No.
team. No, Butch was a heel there, I think,
Oh, that's...
because he had the bleached hair.
Yeah. I'm getting confused.
I can't remember who the participants were. It was a great night.
Right.
A great night. Thanksgiving night, first time ever for a pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really tickled that I was part of it. And I thought the match was pretty good. Bigelow really shined pretty good.
Did, how close did you and Bigelow become? Pretty close?
Pretty close.
Traveled with him?
Yeah.
You guys traveled together?
He just went through that divorce, you know, and I tried to talk about him getting married when he told me he was going to get married. We had finished up, we were in Vegas, as a matter of fact. Did a show at the Thomas and Mack Center. Had about 3 or 4 days off, and we're going to start back somewhere in the central part of the country. So I was going to stay in Vegas, party for 4 days, and then hit the town, you know,
Right.
start back at. He was going to go back to New Jersey and get married. So think about it now.
Yeah.
You know, you can stay here with me, have a hell of a time.
Right.
If you would have listened to me, it would have been all right.
How did Vince change as everything got bigger?
How did Vince change?
Yeah, did he change at all, or you didn't really know him?
I didn't know him prior to the time that I
Right.
started working for him.
How was he with you, though?
He was always very upfront, very straightforward. I see him today. I still see him when they come to Minneapolis. I go down and see the boys. And I mostly know the road agents now, not the talent so much,
Right.
you know. But I know the road agents and behind the scenes people and that. And I always have a nice conversation with Vince. There's no animosity there. I was grateful for the opportunity.
Was there a noticeable difference in the house show payoffs when Hogan was there and Hogan was not on the show? Was it really a big difference?
You know, anytime you're lucky enough to be on a show that Hogan was on, you knew it was going to draw and probably sell out. I'd say, yeah, there's probably a noticeable difference.
Well, did you ever manage anybody who didn't let you get your stuff in?
I can't think of anybody, no. I mean, how could they stop me from getting my stuff in?
Right.
Maybe in the first year or two, but I was lucky enough to be with Buddy and Jerry then, so. But I don't think anybody could have stopped me from doing my thing. You know.
Why'd you leave?
Why'd I quit?
Yeah.
I'd gotten, you know, I was older. This is towards, I think my last show was in like 92 or something like that. And I was getting older, and the attitude of the business had changed so much. I still love the business, but it was so different from when it was when I started, you know. We were all together pulling in the same direction for gold, like we were talking about earlier. Trying to draw the next week, you know, and everybody getting along. We were like brothers.
So it's pretty safe to say that you're a person who really, what happens, the product, what happens with the business, you take a lot of that, like, you love the business, obviously.
I love the business.
And how the business is portrayed, that means a lot to you. And
Yes, it does. It
So-
does, it really does. Yeah.
so once you
I spent so
saw,
much of my life, you know, involved in it that, I mean, from the time I was like 15 years old until I finally quit. I'm 92, so I must have been 46 or something like that when I quit.
so the business was obviously changed,
A lot.
and that was definitely the reason.
Yeah, it didn't get fun. I always told myself I'd be in it till it didn't get fun, but I wasn't having a good time. And towards the end, with WCW and that, you know, it wasn't so much Vince. I was still having a good time then. But WCW just got so crazy. Just people, television people running a wrestling business. It doesn't make sense. Any more sense than a wrestler trying to run a TV station.
Right,
Makes no sense.
right. Did you leave? Leave good terms with Vince?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I
Did
said,
he try to offer you like more of an office job, or?
No.
No?
Well, see, the reason I left Vince is because Bigelow left.
Okay.
They got rid of Bigelow. It wasn't a position for me, so it was kind of, it wasn't a you're fired type of thing or anything
Just
like
like,
that.
hey, there's nothing.
We left on good terms. I still see Vince to this day. Probably saw him last time maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and always have friendly conversations with him.
Would you or could you book a territory, like a high level territory like that?
Oh,
Would you-
anymore, I don't know. They've seen so much. What are you going to do?
Right.
You know, what are you going to do?
Would you back then?
I mean, the only way you could possibly be successful just booking it straight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just get away from everything they're seeing now and do it totally different.
How'd you wind up in Florida? Because that was PWFs. Like, I guess that was 90.
What do you mean?
I think Dusty started up, you said. You went down there, didn't you go down there when Dusty did that PWF?
Yeah,
Okay. How was that? What
Yeah.
happened with that?
Well, Dusty, that was right before Dusty went to New York with the polka dots.
Okay.
So that kind of killed that.
Right. Okay, he left
The
because of
main
that.
guy, yeah.
Okay, let's see. Did you go... No, I'm sorry, I'm running around. What other story... We're going back to with Dusty. Did Dusty change when with that PWF towards, like, after his whole Crockett and everything?
Did he change
Yeah, was Dusty
personality?
like, yeah, or...
Dusty and I have
was still-
always gotten along well. I knew Dusty again before I started. We were on a bus trip. Who the hell was it? Ray Stevens got married in Minneapolis. And we're partying up at Larry Hennig's at a resort up north of Minneapolis. And we're celebrating Ray and Carol, his wife's
Uh-huh.
name. Their wedding. They had been together for years. They got married. And the boys were booked in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Mhm.
So instead of ending the party, we called the guy that Larry knew that had a bus.
Right.
We put everybody on the bus with about 20 cases of beer, a bunch of liquor, and drove the bus down to La Crosse. So it was a continuating of the party, you know.
Mhm.
Dusty was on that trip.
Right.
So that, you know, that was before I started too. That's probably 71 or 72.
Right.
So that's how long I've known him.
Memories of Fred Ottman.
Fred Ottman. Fred was a good guy. He's got a good heart. He's not real nimble,
Mm-hmm.
but he's a good guy.
Initial memories, I guess, Dallas Page. Diamond Dallas started
Diamond Dallas.
as the manager.
When I first met Page, he was running a nightclub in Fort Myers, Florida,
Mm-hmm.
called Norma Jeans.
Uh-huh.
And we brought him in, and another guy stood with me in the corner when he first started. And I still talk to him to this day. I just talked to him the other day, as a matter of fact. He
Really?
lives out in L.A. now.
You did a stint, I guess, in WCW.
Sort of.
Um,
I was there with Bigelow. I was there with the Samoans.
yeah, how did you get in with Bigelow? Was it like a package thing, kind of?
Yeah,
Yeah.
after we finished up for Vince, we went into WCW.
Mm-hmm.
Then we both left, and then they called me up to bring the Samoan boys in,
Mm-hmm.
the Samoan SWAT team.
Oh, yeah.
I was the big kahuna,
That's right.
and
That's right, yeah.
the new Wild Samoans, we call
That was in '89, I think, right?
I believe so.
That's when it seemed like Crockett left. That's Flair was in. Funk came in.
Hmm.
It seemed like the territory got hot again
Yeah, I did.
with Terry. That '89 summer and everything.
Yeah,
I remember I would. That's when I would go to the shows as a child. You know.
right.
I remember the bash.
I was a child then too.
At the bash, I remember Philly got 2 bashes that year. Buddha was in.
Yeah.
Eddie Gilbert. How's Eddie Gilbert?
Eddie was a dream to work with. We worked a lot together.
And I think Freebirds Doc was in. Steve Williams.
Yeah, yeah.
It was good stuff.
That was the last time I worked for the WCW. Was with the Freebirds as Big Daddy Dink.
Yes. What
Still talk to Jimmy all the time. Jimmy and Patty.
Yeah, we
Michael
talked to
Hayes,
Jimmy.
I see him when I go down to see the WWE boys when they're in town. I see Michael.
Uh-huh. What happened with the business? It seemed like it just kind of, it was okay, but it's like when Funk came in, it was like real hot and everything, and then it just kind of like died afterwards. Remember, I think were you in when they had
Well,
like
there was-
RoboCop and
Yeah. Well,
Crap
yeah,
like that.
I did the show. I was on that show.
right Capital Combat or something?
Yeah, I was on the show. It was
Right.
Sullivan and Bigelow against Cactus Jack and Norman the Lunatic.
Yeah, who's here?
Who's here? Who's upstairs? Yeah, I was on that show.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was some of the ridiculous stuff they were doing. You know, they just had no clue.
How was how were the Samoans? I think they
Samoans.
feuded with the Road Warriors.
Samoans were great.
That was a good feud.
Yeah. Managed your daddies, Alpha and Sika.
Mm-hmm.
Managed your kids too. So that was my second generation Samoans.
That's cool. How different was WCW compared to without Crockett? Did you think it would last or survive, or?
It was TV people doing really idiotic things.
Is that who was the guy from the Omni?
Jim Hurd.
Kip Fry.
Kip Fry.
He was the guy who ran the Omni, right?
Yeah, they were all geniuses.
Yeah.
Didn't know what the hell they were doing. That really soured me on it. When I
Really?
saw all that stuff, and I didn't want to be a part of
Like I guess after that RoboCop, how long did you stay
it.
after
Ding
that?
dongs and all
Oh,
that. kind of
boy.
crap. I mean, please.
Who were the
you know.
Ding Dongs? They were.
It doesn't matter.
Oh my gosh, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was in that Fort Bragg when they had the show at Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like 120 degrees or something?
Yeah.
Thoughts on some of the guys that you managed? Don Morocco.
Nothing but good times with Don. Don was a great guy. He's one of those guys who could go out there and made my job easy because Don was just on top of the game, you know. A lot of guys, I shouldn't say a lot of guys, some guys you have to watch more than others to make sure they don't miss a step in the process. Never had to worry with Don.
Bad News Allen.
Bad News Allen, double tough dude. Another, I was lucky enough to beat him for the Florida heavyweight title,
Really?
as a matter of fact.
Wow.
I'm just glad he let me, because he could have ripped my head off.
We did an interview with him. He said Andre kind of got a little loud with him on a bus in Japan, and like Bad News,
I've heard this story too, and
Yeah.
I have no doubt that it probably happened.
Yeah,
News was always great, though. We had a good time.
he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
We talked a little Dick Murdoch. Anything else about Dick Murdoch?
Funny man. You're always laughing when Dickie was around. Hell of a worker. Always had you laughing. Loved his Kerr's beer. Kerr's. It's Kerr's.
Samoans.
Samoans.
I know Alpha pretty well. We do business with
Yeah,
him now.
great guys, man. Alpha and Sika both. I think I managed them. I can't remember exactly what situation it was. Might have been at Pro Wrestling USA. Remember when Crockett and Vern and all those guys tried to...
What year was that? That was.
Probably late 80s,
Yeah.
something like that. I don't know. I can't remember. Too many miles.
Joe LeDuc. Anything else?
Joe was crazy. Joe was probably the most intense and scariest guys you could ever be around. But a heart of gold, and just nothing but good memories of Joe.
Nord the Barbarian.
Crazy. I was with him in Louisiana. I was managing Humongous at the time, and he was tagging up with Jake the Snake, and we turned on Jake one day. I can't remember exactly what happened. It's on tape out there. People probably know what I'm talking about. But
Good business.
yeah, he had come in the ring to stop Humongous from doing something, attacking Jake maybe, and then they both attacked Jake.
Right.
We were off to the races.
Were you down in the Mid South when Dog was there?
No,
Jew.
no. But I could only imagine. I've heard the stories.
Yeah.
Dog was a great guy too.
Dick Slater.
Dickie Slater, he'd fight at the drop of a dime. Drop of a hat, yeah. Tough guy.
Who did he used to fight a lot? I heard he got in a lot of fights in one lot. Did he fight Buzz Sawyer a lot, was it? Who did he get in a fight? I forget.
I don't think there's anybody that
Yeah.
Dickie hasn't fought.
Really?
To tell you the truth,
Yeah. You think he tried to be too much like Terry Funk?
you can see definite similarities.
What happened with him recently? Did he get in some trouble or something?
I believe he had an incident down there, but it's over now, and
Yeah.
he's back. And I just saw him not too long ago at the Great Price
Yeah.
Fan Fest.
Charlotte?
Yeah.
Greg Valentine.
The Hammer, the one and only. We've been together since,
L.A., right?
well, before that,
Before that.
actually, Florida. In '74, he was there. And then we all went to L.A. together, Lawrence and him and I. So, yeah, he's a great talent. Believable wrestler, funny guy. when you get to know him, he doesn't look funny on the outside, but he's got a good sense of humor.
Paul Orndorff.
Paul Orndorff, wonderful guy. Knew him when he first started. He's from Florida, Tampa now. And great guy. And I had a good time with him in the WWE. And I just think the world of Paul. He's a great guy.
Rocky King.
Rocky King, I don't
You
really
didn't
know
think
Rocky.
Okay. Adrian Adonis.
Rocky, I think, was either before or after me with the Freebirds. Might have been after me with the Freebirds.
Okay. Adrian Adonis.
Adrian Adonis, yeah. We started, well, the first time I had seen him was in Florida in about 1977 or 8, somewhere along in there. And we were together in Amarillo, when I was in Amarillo for the Funks.
Mm-hmm.
He was in there doing the challenge anybody out of the crowd thing.
Right.
So I've seen him beat the piss out of some guys, you know.
Right. Shoot, too, right?
Shoot, yeah.
Wow.
Crazy guy.
Is it true of Bill Watts if a fan beat up, he would have fired him on the spot?
He's denied it, but I think I remember him doing that.
He did that.
In his book, I heard he denies he did that, but I think he did.
Did. Bob Orton Jr.
Bobby's a great talent. I know his dad. I know his brother Barry. Another kid, Randy, his son. Bobby and I go back a long time too. Tell you a funny story. Back when, what was the guy's name? Peter Frampton.
Uh-huh.
Had to be back in '74 when he had the big
Album.
Yeah. Do you hear what I hear? Anyway, went to see him one night. It was Bob Orton Jr., Bob Roop, and myself. And he was playing at the Lakeland Civic Center. We went to the Civic Center and saw him. And of course, he, just played the shit out of the guitar and all that. So the next night, we're all in a dressing room somewhere in Florida. And Bob Sr. is there, Bob's dad. And Sr. says, well, how'd you guys like that concert last night? Bobby says, you wouldn't have believed it. He says, this guy took this guitar and he says, he made it talk. And Senior says, hell, if I want to see a guy make a piece of wood talk, I go see Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. I thought that was funny. Very Bob Orton.
How about the Guerreros?
Yeah, very talented again. Hector's a sweetheart. Chavo, got a lot of respect for.
Is Hector here this weekend too?
Hector, I believe, is here this
Yeah.
weekend, yeah. I know Chavo Jr. and of course Eddie I knew. Tragedy, what can you say? I was there the night that Eddie died. I was in Minneapolis.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I got out in the hotel to see some friends of mine. And Eddie and Chavo had not yet gotten there by the time I left.
Right.
And 9 o'clock the next morning, somebody called me and said they found him dead. Terrible. Then they did the show that night. They had I think it was what they call a super show, both.
Yeah, both.
Back there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was backstage and it was just tremendously sad.
Do you think the role of a male manager today is non-existent? Or why do you think it is?
Why do we think it is?
The divas, maybe?
I don't know why it is. To tell you the truth, I don't know. I don't begrudge the girls anything, but it's just not the same as the old days. I think a male manager can get away with so much more than a girl can. I mean, you're going to flop around and get juice for a girl, or so I think that element of the business is gone.
Does it bother you the lack of kayfabe in business today?
Well, when you know how the magician pulls the rabbit out of the hat,
Yeah.
what's the point going to see the magician?
What's your thoughts on the drug abuse in today's wrestling product?
What kind of drugs now?
Like
Recreational? or?
Yeah, the painkillers and everything, the somas. Think it's gotten out
Well,
of hand? Whose fault do you think it is?
I always hear people say, well, it's because the schedule is so tough and this and that. Well, their schedule isn't as tough as it was back when I was in the business,
It's probably tougher.
Number one, we were driving, and working every night and all that. And these guys now are only working, 4 nights a week, flying. So, I don't think that's an excuse because it's tough. I don't know what the reason would be. The business has always kind of been like that, where guys would, either abuse painkillers or downs or, stuff like that. But I don't think it's peculiar to today, and I don't think it's because of schedule stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Are you under any Legends contract with WWF?
No, but I just signed a deal. As long as you're speaking about it, I just signed a deal with Jack's Pacific.
Okay.
They're going to do a Humperdinck figure.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's be the first figure for me, and they already got Bigelow and a bunch of guys I managed. So
That's cool.
looking forward to that. Probably early 2007.
Have you ever been contacted to do something with WWF?
No.
Or WWE?
No, I wasn't there. I was only there for about a year.
Right.
A little bit less than a year.
You still watch the product today?
I don't make a point of it, but if I'm around and it's on, I do. Yeah.
So you're still a fan, probably.
Fan is a fan is a fan.
Yeah. What's the favorite rib you ever seen in the business?
It's like if you had a kid, and the kid kind of went astray a little bit, it's still your kid.
Right. What's the favorite rib you ever seen?
They played a horrible rib on me when I first started. There was a guy named Jerry Patel in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry was a hell of a guy, journeyman type guy, refereed and wrestled up there. And some of the boys told me, one of the first nights I was in the business, when you get a chance, tell Jerry you want to see his sister dance. That you heard she was a hell of a dancer. I wanted to fit in with the boys,
Right.
Well, I go up to Patel one night and I said, "Hey, I heard your sister's a hell of a dancer. I'd like to see her dance." "Who told you to say that?" "What are you saying to me?" He started crying. He says, "My sister was just in a car accident, lost both her legs." Oh my fucking God! What did I say to this guy? And all the guys that told me over here kind of snickered and laughed. Who told you to say that? I didn't want to give up these guys.
Right.
That was pretty cruel.
Do you want to write a book?
I think there's a book in me.
What is there any territories that you never went to that you would like to, like Memphis, or how come you never went to Memphis?
Never had an inclination.
Yeah. You don't know Lawler?
I think I've worked pretty much everywhere. Maybe San Francisco I would have liked to. For Roy back in the day. But I've worked pretty much everywhere I wanted to work.
Who's the best worker you ever seen?
Flat out best worker, probably.
Flat.
Harley Race.
Harley Race. Is there one guy that you never managed that you would want to manage? That you thought you could have done good business with?
I don't know. I always tried to do the best with whatever they gave me. Maybe not the most polished, but I think I try to do my best with whoever it was. Can't think of anybody right now other than the obvious, Race or Funk or somebody like that. But I managed Terry. So, there's not really been anybody that I go out of my way to manage if I had to.
If you could show a video...
Sometimes I got more satisfaction of taking a guy
that's
down instead of a big star,
right.
And try to mold him and teach him a little bit. I got more out of that, I think, than anything else.
Who's the best guy that you ever managed?
The best guy?
Or best...
It's like saying, who's your favorite kid? Can't do it.
Right.
They all brought something to the table.
If you could show your grandchildren or great grandchildren three of the best matches that you were involved with on a DVD, what would you show them?
Geez, I'd probably pick something like that one I was telling you about in Montreal, the big ballpark show. Probably pick something like from my era with Vince, like a Madison Square Garden show. And probably something definitely from Florida. Maybe a Dusty Rhodes, Billy Graham match or something like that.
Who's probably the best promoter you worked for?
Eddie Graham.
Eddie Graham?
Yeah.
Smartest booker?
Smartest. No, hands down. Nobody else could hold a candle to him. Other promoters would call him when they got in the spot. So that tells you how smart he was.
Did you ever work Japan?
No. I had a chance to go one time, but I was in L.A. and the Blondes went, and I was managing half the card. I had Valentine and Choi Sun and a couple other guys, so I wasn't able to go. But I would have liked to have gone. And you know, that's one thing I really wish that I could have done. The guys that are going to Europe and seeing all this great stuff, you know, if I had anything to change, I think it would be more international travel.
Okay. Yeah. Did you ever have a chance to work world class? Or
No, I never did. No. I think I probably could have,
Right.
because Gary was there. Gary and I are quite good friends.
Right.
And Gary did use other managers when he was there. But it just never came up, you know. I was always busy somewhere else.
Did you know Sam Munchnick or
Yeah.
Paul Bosch?
I worked for Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Worked for Paul in Houston.
How was that like?
Houston was like very, very good, man. Paul was a great guy, treated the guys fair.
Mm-hmm.
Watts took over from him,
Mm-hmm.
and I was going in and out of there for Bill. And Houston was a great wrestling town. St. Louis was a great wrestling town.
What do you think's the best wrestling town that you were?
Probably St. Louis. I think that would be
The
what
marquee?
most people would consider the mecca or the hub.
Right. Any other regrets? Like you were saying about?
I don't have any regrets. I guess I guess just being able to do what the guys do now with the travel and the international, people from around the world knowing. It's great to be known in Florida. It's great to be known in the States. But to have that worldwide reputation, I think would be kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to see, I haven't done that much travel in Europe, but I'd like to see all the places that the guys are lucky enough to go to now.
Mm-hmm. Like how they have the Legends shows now. Is there like a match that you would like want to be involved in manage? If you could have like a tag or a 6-man
Well,
tag?
you know, I just did one in Florida not long ago, which I never thought I'd do. I never thought I'd manage again because I had a heart operation in 2001. Put a valve in my heart, so they did open heart surgery on me. I thought, well, that's it.
Right.
But then at Wrestle Reunion in Tampa,
Was it the Funks?
no, it was even better.
Okay.
It was Dusty Rhodes, Dustin Rhodes, and Mike Graham against my boys, Abdullah the Butcher, Kevin Sullivan, and CM Punk,
Yep.
the New Age guy.
Yeah, no Punk.
Yeah, so we had it was a great match. We had a lot of fun, good time. And I got to manage again. Never thought I would.
If you could do one more match, a legendary
One
match,
more.
with anybody even past that are dead, alive.
Terry and Dusty.
Terry and Dusty.
Terry Funk, Dusty Rhodes.
Why is there such a feud? What's the deal? That still goes on, even on our interviews.
It started back when they were both in West Texas. And it's just gone on. And
I
on
heard
and on.
somebody said it's something to do with Terry took the book from Dusty took the book from Terry in Florida in the 70s, or one took the book from the other.
Terry never had the book in Florida.
Really?
No.
Or something happened, or somebody told us that I had to do. I forget who told us it.
It's just a thing that's been going on since we were kids. You know?
Yep.
When Dusty first started, when Terry first started. It's just gone on all these years. But whenever those two got in the ring, it was always excitement, you know?
Do you think a territory like a Florida type, you think it could ever come back?
I think I'm a firm believer that as far as things go one way, it'll always swing back the other way, you know? Kind of like a pendulum on a clock. It'll go so far this way, then it has to come back.
Right.
Whether I'll live to see it, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
But I think eventually it will. I think I think it might not be the same animal we're used to seeing now. It might be more of a shoot style thing, but I think there's a chance that it would come back on a regional basis again. Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to say to your fans out there?
I just would like to thank everybody for listening to me. A big windbag for 2 hours now. And I would like to thank everybody for their support over the years. And my God, it's a business I love, and I know you love it too, or else you wouldn't be watching this. I'm very fortunate to have lived my dreams, and I thank you for being a part of it. You know,
Cool.
You made me what I am.
Thank you very much for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, it's been mine.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.